Hello everyone and welcome back. Bit of an extended intermission there, but we will be pretty much going straight into the bronze final here between Finland and Team FGR. We kind of talked about it before, but do you have any quick thoughts, Jag?
Well, I still would like to see Six Faction. Wait, no, not Six Faction. That's the finals. Oh my god, I can't even function. I would still like to see Finland take it. I got the Womps, man. I'm cheering for Wompy and Team Finland. I do hope to see them succeed. But as you do know, one thing to quickly add before we throw it over to our casters is that in that intermission, you guys had plenty of time to donate and support our prize pool, and we received a grand total of one donation of $1. So we got to shout out Kim Jong-pun, Kim Jong-pun, whatever you want to call yourself. Trump's real plan: agitate North Korea. North Korea bombs US. Bombs fizzle, destroy Skellige. Unless he means South Korea, but I'm going to go with Skellige. And then the US has a chance in esports again. Spread the word, don't be sheep. So apparently North Korea is going to bomb Skellige. And that was our donation. And obviously, if you want to donate, 100% of the donation money does go to the prize pool for the Gwentlemen Invitational. You have any predictions? Who do you think is going to win?
I don't know. I guess I can spice it up a little and get behind Team GFR here. Yeah, why not? See how it goes.
Not? Seems sold.
I don't know.
Well,
I like both teams. So I won't really be too sore either way.
But without further ado, I feel like we've had enough intermission and time. Let's just hand it over to our wonderful casters for this bronze place match. Dale and A-. How are you guys doing?
I am doing quite well. And A-, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing quite good, thank you.
Team GFR versus Gwent Finland. We did just get a chance to see Gwent Finland before the intermission. And then Team GFR, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see their matches broadcast. There were some difficulties with that, but we are seeing them for the first time after losing to the Six Faction in the semifinals. Going into this, who do you think? Who are you rooting for?
Personally, I'm going for the French team here. Matt Logan and Shadoways, two well-known players in the community. Shadoways, obviously, for the Faltus deck that everyone played towards the end of last patch. Well, not last patch, but the end of sort of last season. And then Matt Logan, as I know of, a very dedicated player. I always see him playing it, whether it's on people's streams or whether I'm playing against him myself. So yeah, I'm going for them this time.
I think not even in the interest of spice things up, I'm rooting for Gwent Finland here. I think we've got some solid players on their team as well. Ira, Wompy, and Dead17, all very good players. And I don't know, it just... I gotta support Finland. You don't see enough of them, I think.
Yeah, that is true. You don't see them around often.
We're going to be seeing some Radavid, Calvé, and Bruver Hoog, I believe coming from Team GFR, and Ethne, Hinsel, and Dagan, and we have the bans listed as well. So it should be some very interesting matches. Let's just go ahead and hop right into this, I think.
Yep, sure. Very excited to see this first game.
Oh yeah.
And we do have the Hensel here from Mac Logan and the Calvi from Era. See how this goes.
So who do you think is generally favored in this matchup? Calvé or Hinsel?
Personally, I would go for the Hensel, but it's kind of, I think it's a weird one. I think it's a bit 50-50, but Hensel to me at the moment has just been so powerful, and the amount of power you can supply for both rounds 1 and 3, which is what it needs to do, is just phenomenal that I've seen recently.
We actually see this from Gwent Finland's Calvé's perspective, and I think I don't know. I agree. It's a little bit of 50-50, but just judging by the hand here, you've already got one assassin and Kalok available for another assassin if need be, and I think that's going to be playing a big role in this game as we see Hinsel just requiring setup. Needs to have a unit on the board in order to get the Hinsel value off, and if that never happens, then it's a good feather in the cap for the Calvé player.
Yeah, definitely. Just that play there, the death mold there from Mac Logan. Do you think it's worthwhile to thunder away that brigade, or would you save it for something like this Enforcer here? I'm not too sure.
I think it depends on how long you're expecting the round to go on, how much you want to try and muscle your opponent out. And we already see it with just the Thunder, the Battering Ram. It looks like the Hinsel player is trying to go for as much of a just muscle out the opponent as quickly as possible in order to set up this advantage. And I think it's a solid state of mind to be in, especially losing the coin flip, having to go first, or I'm sorry, they won the coin flip, allowing them to be this more counterproductive and seizing the initiative play. I like the play. I think if you're wanting to shut down the brigade, that's the only time you're going to get the opportunity to. As with the Thunder, you do always have the shutdown with the Enforcer as well, but you have the Battering Rams that you're trying to get the value off of as well. So it's a solid play. Yeah,
definitely. I agree with that, because obviously the Hensel wants to win that round one, so they're going to go for that long-term play. And the brigade, obviously, the only time you can kill it is that time which you said, as it will be above 6 pretty much the rest of the game. So here, McLogan's in sort of a weird state, because he will probably play on this game, this round. Oh, okay. I'm mistaken there. He goes for the pass for the 2-card advantage here, if Era chooses to play a card.
And I think it's a solid pass. As the Hinsel player, as I mentioned, you need this little bit of setup, and as soon as you try and go for that battering ram setup, the assassin comes down, and you're just like, okay, cool, what do I do next? And seeing the opportunity to go up 2 cards off of round 1 is solid. If you're not going to be trying to go for round 1, you're trying to go for that 2-card advantage, and you give yourself this opportunity now where you're saying you can take round 1, but I am going to at least get this 2-card advantage.
Yeah, definitely. The 2-card advantage is definitely going to help out a lot in this long run, because there's no way Era can really get this card advantage back by just dry passing or playing the spy, really, because McLogan might play his own spy as well, and so it would counteract that too. But yeah, we see Era taking this first round, 2 cards down, so he's kind of in a bit of a deficit here, but he does have control over this round too, so we'll see what he chooses to do.
And we do see the Summoning Circle in hand and the Cantarella draw, allowing that 2-card advantage to become a positive 1-card advantage, actually, depending on how things shake up in this round too. So I think it will depend on just how much what Gwent Finland and what the Calvé player Era is trying to get out of this round. And if it's just making up the card advantage, then he has the cards to do so.
Yeah, because there's that line of play where you can just dry pass now, and then you have the Menno to hit the Cantarella round 3, and then you'll still have the card advantage in round 3. Although playing a long round 3 against Hensel could be detrimental with those siege supports ticking for every card played. So let's see
just Era contemplating, Gwent Finland contemplating their action, contemplating if they want to go for this round 2 card advantage, or if they're really worrying about card advantage at all. Is there anything you're trying to force out of the Hensel player in round 2?
Well, I guess you can force out the Hensel, because I think Hensel is favoured in the long round, and so if you want to get that Hensel out for to deny the siege support value, then I guess you can go for that. But I guess they opt for the card advantage play, where I think that's still a fine play. Like Nilfgaard in the long round is super good too, and you've got that Swears there, which can really deny the Hensel the value there.
I will say the one thing that I'm noticing from the potential downside of going for this pass right off the bat is that Roach is still in the deck, and you kind of want her out of there sooner rather than later, especially going into round 3.
Hey, yeah, you definitely don't want to be drawing that in round 3. That's definitely a tricky point of call. Especially Cantarella can pull it as well. There's not really a lot of gold cards that Era wants to play. Oh, there we go.
Well, if you're going to draw Roach, this is the right time to do it. Right at the start, just get her out of there and don't worry about drawing her again.
Yeah, sure. That was definitely the best action they could have got there. But yeah, as I was saying, unfortunately, Era doesn't really have any proactive gold cards to play, so that Roach coming out there is kind of key as to them not drawing Roach off something like Cantarella later on, as they want to play their golds last rather than sooner, I guess.
And we see the Calvé player just having the options on how he wants to deal with the Hensel. He can just continually shut down. Again, we have Kalok still in hand for an assassin, being able to shut down that siege support. Or we have Swears just to get the rest out of the deck anyway and say that you can have the 1, but I'm not allowing you 3 of these things.
Yeah, I'm expecting the Swears out here. I don't see any other play that could really deny it. I guess, yeah, you can go for the assassin play there, but then... And then if the Shani comes out from Henselt, then you can...
And he actually has a Vicofaro assassin as well.
Oh, so he doesn't have to play the assassin. Wow, okay. But I guess if the Shani does come out, then it will have that armor, so he won't be able to double assassin that unit, I guess.
Yeah.
That would have been very detrimental for Mac Logan's strategy here.
Oh, and here we do see it now. He may not be able to get that assassin again, but he can get the Swears this time.
Yeah, definitely.
So looking at Calfei having so many options it's where I was thinking that Henselt might just be a little disfavored in this matchup just because of the number of ways that Nilfgaard has to shut down any plays that are like, I want to do this and then do something because of that next turn, and Nilfgaard's just like, you don't get to.
Yeah, that Swears tech in this Nilfgaard deck is definitely proving its worth here. Not a lot of people run the Swears in sort of the conditional spies list at the moment, but having that Swears here is definitely going to help them out so much. Just denying all that value from siege supports. I don't really know what other options the Henselt has now. Would you know?
Well, we've seen 2 PFIs, a single battering ram, so presumably there's still 2 battering rams left in the deck, and a single PFI, so Henselt will find value off of something. But no, Henselt is looking for, what are his main options left, and we haven't seen many golds from him yet. We did see the Shani now, but he still has John, what's his name? I can't remember.
Natalis.
There we go, Natalis. So I think as the Nilfgaard player, you're just focusing on continuing to shut down your opponent's game plan. If they try and stack over 5 or up to 5 units on a row, or 4 units if they do have the John, then just shut that down. And you're playing this spies list anyway, so you're going for card advantage, you're going for large amounts of points on your side, you're just trying to deny your opponent from being able to do what they're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. And then you still got all that tempo like we see here with the Emissary Brigade, and you're going to have so many Emissary chains here with the Selak, with the Calvi that can pull emissaries. There's going to be so many spies on the board that these brigades are going to get huge value. So yeah, we'll see what this... I guess the Kahir comes out now to pull another brigade, or an Enforcer maybe, to get that overall brown value with the long-term play.
Yeah, and with your leader ability still up as well, there's no reason not to. If you're trying to save your remaining cards for when you absolutely need them, you're just looking at Kahir and being like, all right, what else is in my deck? And we'll go ahead and get Roach out of the way too. But we do have some options: Emissaries, Imperial Enforcer, and Vico Baromedic shown, going for the Emissary and presumably into an Enforcer.
Yeah, I would expect this Enforcer out here. You just want to get that long-term value coming out of your cards here, because you don't really want to be pulling that Enforcer after you've already played all your spies. Oh, so this is a very smart play, I think, from Era, because now he can actually use the Assassin here. Wait, can he?
He can, yes. The Assassin will damage it for 6, he'll be at 1 weakened, and then he'll just ping him off with the Enforcer. Finally getting rid of that siege support, because even just the 1, you see how much value that's already gotten. 3, 6, it's already a 12-point bronze, and it's just going to keep going up. And I'm sorry, I think I missed 1 too, so if I'm not mistaken, it's a 14-point bronze, 15-point bronze. Just taking away, and can you imagine if there was that extra 2 of them out as well?
Yeah, that would have been very hard for Era to deal with here, as Nilfgaard can provide a lot of points, but not as much as the siege supports can offer, unfortunately. So denying that value from them was definitely key in this matchup. Then we still have the Joachim. We've still got the big players left from Era, so we'll see how this goes. We'll probably see the Assassin here, just to deny that siege support value from Mac Logan.
Yeah, the Assassin just seems like if you're already setting up for the siege support kill, that's going to be your next way of doing so. And with 6 cards, presumably 6 units still remaining in his hand, that's another 6+ points off of that single siege support, so getting rid of it sooner rather than later just makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to be giving the opponent any opportunity to get any more value out of that. It still will buff the Assassin, but it's definitely worth to deny that value in the long term, as there's still 6 cards left in Mac Logan's hand here. We see the Stennis here. Oh, we get Redanian Elite. So this could be a big tell that Mac Logan is playing the Dunbanner Heavy Cavalries, which are very prominent in this current state of meta, as they will remove the armor and be huge point plays in round 3.
And looking at Gwent Finland's hand, there's just nothing to deal with what Hinselt's about to put out, what Team GFR is about to do. You can see this coming. You're just like, all right, don't bet on heavy cavalry, getting a bunch of points. I can't. I have no gold weather. I have no hailstorm. I have nothing that's going to help me shut down all these points that are coming out. So you're just trying to match them on points, and instead you have to kind of hang back a little bit longer. And I think it's just looking worse and worse. There's already 6 units on 2 different rows for Hinselt, ready to Commander's Horn, either one of them for an additional 20 points. You're still 30-something plus points behind. As the Calvé player, you're just falling behind in this long round.
Yeah, and what I just realized after seeing about the Henselt not being able to pull anything, it can actually pull the heavy cavalry, so that Henselt is going to be a huge drop if he can get all the armor off this is one elite here, and then have the armor off the Stennis and one of the battering rams, so that Henselt's going to be a huge tempo play there. But we do see the Infiltrator in Era's hand here, so he can kill one of them, but only one, and he's 56 points down. Wow. This is going to be a tough match.
Certainly. What do you think about the Imperial Enforcers attacking the Cantarola that was thrown across?
I guess it's giving away that he has an Infiltrator in his hand, so that he can hit something else with the Infiltrator, so he can Menno that instead of the Cantarella. I guess I wouldn't really advise it, because then you're sort of telling your opponent what is in your hand. You could sort of, I guess, bluff that you didn't have an Infiltrator and maybe just not hit the Cantarella, but yeah, I guess it's not a bad play because you're going to use the Infiltrator on something anyway, so yeah, I don't think it's too bad.
There's that Hinselt value. We're just 3 cards still remaining in Hinselt's hand, 4 cards with Calvé, but you're still having to overcome a 65-point deficit in order to take the lead.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be rough here from Era. I'm not sure there's any card that I guess there's no. We don't see any Marigold's Hailstorm in this deck, right?
I do not believe so. No.
There is no 60, 70 point storms coming at you. So yeah, I don't think there's any way that Era here can pull this back, unfortunately.
And I'm wondering how much of this game actually came down to that round 2 Tripass going for that card advantage, because as you pointed out, just Hinselt thriving on these long rounds, able to just put out points, and even with the amount of shutdown that Calvé had, and I was rooting for Calvé as well, I'm like, yeah, you just keep shutting these things down. It's still, Hinselt's just like, I'm just going to put points on the board. Just don't, you killed off a couple of my things. I don't care. I'm still putting points on the board.
Yeah, that's just how the cookie crumbles here, and we actually see more points with the Natalis pulling that Commander's on there. That's going to be, I think that's pretty much going to seal the deal here for the Gwent Finland side, unfortunately. I definitely would like to see this Nilfgaard take the win here, because I'm a real big fan of this Nilfgaard deck, as I've been playing it quite a lot recently. And this is actually, I see here, this is why he hit the Cantarella, as he could put it down to 7, so that the Nordica Brigade could get the full value. There we go. Now I see the play.
Oh, and the Spy actually helping out with just, I don't know, every now and then when you're just sitting there and you're like, I don't know, just so many points behind, and they throw a Spy at you, you're just like, yes, points, thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna bring the gap a bit further towards Era's side, but unfortunately we only see, I think, the 25 left to play, so if McLuhan can find 6 points in these 2 cards, we're definitely gonna... Oh, let's go.
Hit his remaining units anyway, and just kidding. Just kidding, I wasn't actually giving you any points from my Spy.
It was just a bluff all along. And he actually, I see now, he actually has no cards in his deck, so he knew exactly what he was pulling with Dijkstra. So that's definitely a good stand-in from that deck building side. So yeah, we see Mac Logan here take the win for team... This is the French team, right? Yeah.
GFR.
GFR. So yeah, 1-0 up for GFR. That was definitely a very good game there. They definitely knew their strategy well. They got that 2-card advantage in round 1 and just piled through. What did you think about it?
Oh, it definitely highlighted the strengths of both decks, where you're trying to, as the Nilfgaard player, shut down what your opponent's doing, and he was able to successfully. But as the Hinselt player, you're just trying to overwhelm your opponent, throw as much as on the board as you can, and actually benefiting from the Swears, because as you mentioned, he only had 2 cards left when Dijkstra was played, so he knew exactly what he was playing. But he would have had an additional 2 units in the deck. Well, actually, never mind. He would have actually pulled them out with Hinsult. So I am, getting ahead of myself. So no, that was just a very well-oiled and well-executed Hinsult machine.
Yeah, definitely, and we're gonna see it out here again. So we're gonna see if Era has learned from what the deck brings, and then maybe see if he can bring some strategy to play against it. As we see, he is bringing the Bruvahug deck that we've seen quite a lot recently, with the movement and that double weather definitely doing a lot of damage in that long round. So I guess maybe we could see a match of that Hinsult power in this round 3. We'll see.
For certain. This is going to be the same Hinsult list as the Strike format, so this matchup was not banned. And knowing that you know what your opponent's doing exactly, you've seen almost the entire deck at this point, minus a card that was left in hand, and taking a movement and weather-based deck against it, I think is the right call, because you struggled from being able these long rounds and struggled from having placing units on multiple different rows, playing around all of any ways of getting big swings left. And now you're suddenly playing movement Squirtle with Weathers and Marigolds, and you're just like, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, yep, Marigold's in hand. So you're playing the exact counter that you need against a Hinsult.
I guess, yeah, it is a counter, but if you think about it, the Hinsult player can get so much tempo. If he played the Siege bot here, and Era, I don't think he has any. Yeah, he doesn't really have any way of destroying that unit, and then Mac Logan chooses to Hinsult out. He could just pass, and he would be so far ahead that maybe Era would not be able to surpass him in those 2 cards. Fortunately for Era, he did win the coin flip, so he would not go those 2 cards down again.
I don't think Era would mind, Gwentlemen wouldn't mind going down multiple cards here, specifically because of the Doragary in hand. You have that Ekimara carryover if you absolutely need it, just for the extra 8 points swing. So the options are there to go for that 2 cards down, but then still retain a little bit of carryover, so that your opponent's not able to play a 1-strength Reaver Hunter. Or, I'm sorry, Reaver Scout. I get my Northern Realms confused every now and then.
Oh, we actually see the Stennis come out straight away. Maybe he didn't actually have any siege supports in hand here, so he's going for that high roll on that one there, and he managed to hit it. So we're going to see a lot of points coming out from this Hinsult soon after this round, as there's not really much in Era's hand that can really stay in this round. I guess he has to play this drought now, otherwise he's going to be bullied out, I think. What do you think about that?
I think even if he plays the Drought now, he's going to be bullied out. The Drought is just so low tempo. You're actually, if I'm not mistaken, giving your opponent points because you're going to be popping the last of the armor off the Redanian Elite. But there's not enough movement in hand. So much of what Gwentlemen Bruvahug has right now is just not high enough tempo. Hinsult is just trying to bully out Hug out of this round and just play extremely high tempo, extremely quickly, and you can just see this coming. So if you're Gwentlemen, what do you do? And it looks like they're trying to play their highest tempo cards this spot.
Yeah, just trying to get all the tempo he can out of his deck. And obviously it'll help him in the long rounds, as he won't have to mulligan them away in further rounds. And Hinsult here actually is opting for the Reaver Scout play on the siege ports rather than Hinsulting them out, which I think is probably a better option, as he's wanting just to stay ahead. He doesn't want to commit too much to this round, as he knows that if Era does commit, then he can still win it, but he doesn't need to commit all his big units like Hinsult and such. So he just opts for the slow play of getting that Reaver Scout for the siege spot here. We actually do see the Drought come out. What do you think he can do about this now?
Well, the Drought comes out after the Reaver Scout came out, so we don't have to worry about the Redanian League getting popped, but it really tells that Gwentlemen is in it for this round, and we actually did have the siege support in hand, so I'm very curious about what he was hoping to pull off of Stennis.
I think it was the... Yeah, actually, I'm not so sure now. I would have definitely gone for the not having a siege support in hand, but yeah, now we see it come out of his hand. I'm really not so sure. Maybe he didn't want to play the siege support bare, so he wanted to give it that armor just in case Era did have some sort of way of dealing with it, so he could keep it on the board for a potential Hinsult maybe.
Quite possibly, but we do see a pass coming out from Team GFR in round 1, finally giving up the round, saying that, I'll just take my single card advantage since Gwent Finland did end up winning the coin flip this time. And a very surprising move, I think. Henselt normally has the tools that they need to fight round 1, especially after you're playing all 3 of your siege supports and your Stennis, and you're saying, here's a lot of strength that I can just throw out there pretty quickly, get some tempo, and set up for a nice, long round. And then you're saying, no, I don't want to deal with this drought. I don't want to deal with this constant ticking. Just go ahead and have the round. I'll take my card advantage. And I'm not sure how wise a decision that is. Definitely a positive from Gwent Finland's perspective. You're sitting there looking at your hand just like, okay, if this round goes long, what do I honestly have? And now getting to get back into the driver's seat and just be like, I'll go ahead and decide how we want to play round 2.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like Area from Gwent Finland here is just going to take that drive past here and get the win on even, well, not the win, but go into round 3 on even cards. And then you have the card advantage as well with that Yavin in round 3, and you're probably most likely going to either kill the Yavin or get it really low with that Marigolds at the end. And obviously the Yavin in this situation, as it pulls a spell and a unit, it will guarantee them that Ragnarok if they do not draw it. And then they still have Zoltan there to move the units into that Marigold. So yeah, got a pretty set up hand here from Gwent Finland. So we'll see what the French team here can pull out the bag.
Actually, the reinforcements coming down seems like a odd choice. You're not going to be getting that card back anytime soon, unless I need to brush up on some Northern Realms.
You can with the if they have. Don't think we saw it, but if they have Naneke, they can put it back in and pull it with Natalis and such like that. But yeah, I don't think we saw a Naneke in the deck last time. So yeah, maybe they just didn't have a unit in their hand that they wanted to give away, so they just tried to fetch one out of the deck.
And if you're Gwent Finland at that point, you see that their least valuable card in hand was a reinforcements. How scared are you that you just let them get out of a round 2 with most of their hand?
Very. I would be very scared to see what Mac Logan here can bring out with this hand style. Although you do have this mindset of you have the golden weather, you have the long round, you still have a good chance of winning this game with the Marigolds at the end with those big units. You can also sort of manipulate the board as well, as those Dunbanner heavy cavalries will be siege locked, and so you can play around sort of the back row with your movement and stuff like that.
And contemplating the Yavin, if you're going for that Ragnarok, and as you mentioned, that's your long round answer, it's just I got a Ragnarok, it's going to constantly tick and I'll get some points off of it, then you kind of want to get that sooner rather than later. So I agree with the Yavin play if that is your decision, but I do not believe that we have seen the mage, who I cannot remember the name of.
Death Mold.
Death Mold, thank you. So no Death Mold in sight yet, unless I completely missed him. So that is I think a point of concern as the Group Hook player, that you're giving up a spy and giving up a gold card just to be answered from a single mage.
Yeah, definitely. That Death Mold is a real concern here. Maybe Gwent Finland choose to wait a few turns, maybe play about 3 cards or so, move a few units around, and then play the Ragnarok to maybe sort of wait for the Death Mold to be played. Because if you play that Marksman, there is a real opportunity for McLogan just to snipe that with the Death Mold rather than save it for the Ragnarok. And so maybe they choose that option, but if the Ragnarok is played and then Death Mold just answers it, it's definitely going to be a tough matchup here for Gwent Finland.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that line of play. If you're Gwent Finland and you want to try and get the most value off your Ragnarok, it's just trying to figure out when to pull the trigger, and with nothing on the range throw as of yet, willing to hold on to that just in case there is that Death Mold answer, so you get at least a guaranteed 6, seems like a pretty solid plan. But we do see some more setup coming out, knocking off one of the flanking infantries, and then just getting picked off immediately by the Eskel, just knowing that there was going to be further movement, and there is that Death Mold clear skies.
Yeah, definitely going to be rough here from Gwent Finland. There's not really much other than that Marigolds that they have left really to stay in contention here. You really want to get that Ragnar ticking as much as possible to get the most value out of it as possible. But unfortunately, we're going to see it denied straight away. But we do have a lot of movement. We've got those agitators which will pull the mercenaries, which then will move everything. I'm pretty sure will be moved to that back row at the end of this game. So this Marigold is going to be pretty huge. So we'll see if it's enough when we get there.
And it doesn't, I don't know if it's going to be enough. Marigolds is going to be a large swing. As you mentioned, I agree. I think it's going to be seeing almost every single unit onto the siege row. There's just so much movement coming out, and that Harrowstorm is going to hit for a bunch. But at the end of the day, you kind of have that points on your side of the board too, and I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to match the might of this Hinseld army.
Yeah, and we see the Henseldt come out here for the battering rams. That's huge play here. They've got so much power coming out, and they can set up the next battering ram with the battering ram they just used, and they're now 32 points ahead. So even that Marigold doesn't feel like it's going to be enough with the amount that Matt Logan here can sort of manipulate his board so that he can play on 2 rows rather than just that 1 row to play into the Marigolds. And I don't think there's enough movement, unfortunately, here from Gwent Finland. What do you think?
I think he can move another 5 units, so if he plays anything else on the melee row, it's going to live. But yeah, I agree, it's just... I don't know if it's enough points. Having that Ragnar route just get shut down immediately in round 3, I think it's just a testament to, again, we've seen this now 2 games in a row from the Hinseld player where they lose round 1, but then they get out pretty easy round 2. And it lets them save so much of their strategy for round 3, and again, just more points, more armor, more everything.
Points. Oh yeah, we're gonna see these heavy cavalries out. So the fact that he did hands out all those battering rams probably tells us that he has maybe 1 more heavy cavalry in hand, maybe 2 more heavy cavalries in hand, and he just wanted to make the most out of that Stennis there with that 10 armor that you can get rid of. And we have what's the Brewer going to pull here? What's the options? We have the Sheldon Skaggs that could be an option. So that's the best thing they can really choose right now, really.
Sheldon Skaggs, some more movement. Another agitator would probably be the most points possible if you're trying to play around a hailstorm that your opponent might have, but I don't believe that we saw one last game.
Well, I guess if you pull that, you get 9 points on your board, and then it'll be the 4 points on for the Marigolds as well, which I guess is pretty much the same value as playing the Sheldon Skaggs on that back row anyway. So yeah, there's not really an optimal play there, but unfortunately, I don't think we have enough points.
Well, I mean, this is just going to come down to how big of a hailstorm can you possibly have, because there are going to be still a sizable number of points, another 17 to play. So we're looking at 57 points from Gwent Finland's side of the board, and then just trying to shut down whatever the opponent can have. And we are seeing a lot of it. This is a very large back row, but the counter hailstorm.
Oh, that is rough. That is very rough here. They really needed those points on his own board here. At the moment we have, well, let me calculate this. It's about a 43-ish points on that hailstorm. Oh god. Okay, yeah, I don't think this is enough, unfortunately. Oh,
no, so close from
that was so
55, close. 55-point hailstorm, and still just not enough. That counter hailstorm stealing the round, stealing the game for Team GFR.
Yeah, having that counter was just so good for them. They really needed a bit of strength there to. I guess it did come down to a close match, which I wasn't really expecting from that, how the round played out. But yeah, definitely showing how big that hailstorm can be in this situation.
And that's 2 games now, 2 matchups from Gwent Finland that have the opportunity to shut down Hinseld, and still just getting beat by Hinseld, and just shows the strength of that deck. That even when you're trying to shut down parts of them, they either have the answers, have the counters, or they just keep trucking along. But on to our next game, we don't see Hinseld, but we do see that same Gruber who looks that we saw before, going up against a Dagon.
Yeah, I think in this matchup, I'm actually going for the favor of the Bruber. I think that Golden Weather and the fact that you can move all the units around really hinders the value potential that monsters here can get, because you usually want to play those Ran Warriors that with usually suit that hybrid sort of consume deck at the moment. So you want to move those Ran Warriors, and then once they've moved, they can't pop the eggs, which then the Harpies don't come out, and then you just result in really, really bad draws later on, unfortunately.
And it'll determine just to be determined rather, just what type of Dagon is. I agree that it is likely a hybrid consume, but I have seen full weather variants as well, and I don't know, this is the first that I am seeing this Dagon list in this tournament, so it's going to be interesting to see just what is brought out. But if it is the hybrid consume, then I agree. Movement Scoia'tael does have some options to be able to shut that down and not get punished too severely.
Yeah, I definitely would be excited to see the new sort of Dagon list that some people have been playing with the double weather Dagon and just going full out on that weather. Just sometimes it's maybe a bit too much. You kind of have two weathers that you don't want to play in hand or something like that. But yeah, we'll see how this plays out.
And Gwent Finland losing the coin flip, offering for the very early Brewer Hoog.
Yeah, I guess there's not really much he can play here, as yeah, he's opting for this because he doesn't actually have any gold weather in hand, and so he's just trying to fish for that gold weather as efficiently as possible. And there's not really a reason for Mac Logan to pass here because he wants to win this round, and he's only 8 points down, so it's not like you can get the card advantage. So it's a pretty sensible play here to get that card advantage back in your favor.
And Yavin pulling out probably the better of the two gold weathers against Dagon, especially with this hybrid consume moves, what it is looking like with some Harpy eggs coming up, because you're able to just constantly kill off the eggs before they get a chance to be consumed. So the drought coming out, and I think Gwent Finland just weighing their options, deciding if they are wanting to try and fight for this round, that they lost the coin flip, they've managed to turn that around and get that card advantage back. They will just lose it again next round if they wanted to pass, but opting to go for that drought, saying that, yes, I want to fight for this round, and let's go. What can you do?
Yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting to see if Gwent, the French team here, have actually chosen any sort of counter to it, if they've brought in a buyer, something like that, expecting the gold weather coming out, because it is quite a prominent deck at the moment. So teching against it, just putting a mage or a first light or something in the deck wouldn't be detrimental, and it could help out a lot here if he actually has drawn it and has it in his deck.
And we see high tempo plays available to both players. That single Vran, I think, popped him up a good 20-something points, but we still see some movement available, some thinning and pulling out of units, as well as Sheldon Skaggs in hand willing to just blow up that ranged row. So there's a lot of high tempo plays still available to Gwent Finland, as well as to Team GFR, and we do see the Ekimara coming out. What do you think of that play?
I think that's a really telling play of we kind of want to get out of this round. We don't want to play into this drought any longer, so we're going to establish our carryover so you can't dry pass us next round, and then yeah, we're just going to sort it from there. I think Gwent Finland needs to play this Kiaran here on this Ekimara. Maybe they're expecting a second Ekimara, but I think they do need to play this Kiaran now so that they can have the opportunity to drive past next round. And we'll see if actually they go for the pass here. They can get the one card advantage with the carryover, yeah. So we see the pass out here. It's a very sensible pass here, I think, from Mac Logan. They have the carryover, they have the one card advantage, and yeah, I think they're pretty happy with that pass there.
And do you value the Kieran just for that denying that carryover? You're going to go down a card no matter what, and if just looking at the hand, I think that Kieran is just a very clean answer to the rest of this round, being able to deny the carryover, being able to just go for that dry pass in round 2 if so desired, or to just take the loss on equal cards. Don't think that's ever the option.
No, I don't think that's definitely with the carryover. I don't think that's definitely off the plate. We do see see, this is I think is why they should have played it last round. I don't feel like it's a prominent play to play now. They could have played it before, and then the French team would have probably been forced to play the round out a bit longer, and they may have got that win the round on even cards rather than one card down. So yeah, I definitely feel like There's a sort of misplay there, but I think they're still in a good position. They can drive past here. They've got a long round 3, and they're in a really good state to bring this home, I think.
And opting for that mulligan, if they want that long round 3, there's still Ragnarok in the deck and no way of drawing it out anymore. But that mulligan did end up backfiring, and if you're going for the dry pass, it's fine, and you're okay with it being able to blacklist the commandos later, but it's definitely not what you're looking for. He's digging. He hit one of the 2 golds left, and he hit the one that he was probably not looking for.
Yeah, he definitely needs that Ragnarok here to really have a chance here of taking this round 3. He still does have the marigolds. He does have a lot of movement. He's got that Ard here as well, so he still has a really, really good chance, and he can clear all the weather that Dagon can put out as well.
Yeah, we're looking at a handful of no weather. I'm gonna move your units wherever the hell I feel like, and just try and get as many points as possible. And I think that no weather is probably going to play the largest role here. As a hybrid consumed Dagon, do you really have that many options of interacting with your opponent's side of the board? Are you really running a lot of control cards?
Not that I would know of. The only real card that can interact is sort of Kairan, but a lot of Finland's units here are not the maximum amount, because you can eat something on the board that's 6. I guess the Ard, but the Ard's can be played really late, and I don't think the Kairan, if it is in the hand, will be saved for that long. But yeah, there isn't really much, unless they've teched something in for the tournament. Then yeah, there isn't really much that Dagon here can really do to stop the board here from the Brewer player.
But we do see that Ren Warrior just posing such a huge threat. There's so much to consume on that melee row, and just being able to knock that out from the get-go, just be like, stop eating things. I don't want you getting all those points.
Yeah, that movement is definitely going to come in very handy. And the fact that they've moved, the fact that he wants to clear this weather means that he can't actually move the brand anymore to deny that consume value, as he's already moved it to the back row. Maybe we could wait. Maybe you could wait, I guess, 1 turn. You could maybe let your board damage by 2 from that fog, move the Vran Warrior to the middle row, and then you can deny more consume value there. And then just clear it next turn or something. But he opts for that clear weather now, and he's going to move the Necker into, I guess, for the Marigold's value here.
I think it's a very interesting position to be in as the Brewer player, because you're just trying to... You have the tool set to deny your opponent their strategy. And at the same time, you're trying not to get hurt by yourself too much in the process. So clearing the weather, I think, makes sense. You want to keep as much power on your side of the board as possible, because that Hailstorm is going to be a nice swing, but at the end of the day, your opponent is going to have more power present on the board before that Hailstorm goes up. And every time, you're just not going to be able to compete. You're not trying to play for tempo. You're trying to play for this control, movement, interruption, and then a big swing at the end. So we do see another Vrand Warrior coming out on the melee row, again, just threatening these giant consumes and getting pretty handedly countered with the Zoltan. So this is where I said it's interesting as the Brewer player, how much can you deny your opponent their strategy while at the same time still trying to maximize your strategy?
Yeah, I definitely feel that the Zoltan play there was very good, denying that extra consume trigger, so you don't get the +1 from that Necker every 2 turns. You can eat that second Vran. Definitely a good placement there from the Vran Warriors, knowing that Vran Warrior that was on the 1 timer could instantly eat the other Vran Warrior. Was definitely a good heads up there from the Finland team here. I think it's actually going to be a pretty big struggle here for Mac Logan to take this game. He can just clear this weather now, and he can probably possibly move one of his units to maybe make up for that Sheldon Skaggs in his hand, and then probably the commandos, because then you get the +2 from the commandos from moving it, and then when the Sheldon Skaggs is played on top of that, you'll get the extra +2 from those commandos. So getting that optimal points is definitely going to be pretty tough for Mac Logan to deal with here.
Yep, definitely. And we see a little bit of change in strategy from Finland. Was originally trying to play solely on the siege row, and just like, okay, no, we're going to have to clear weather. We'll start moving things around. And as you point out, the commandos just being the perfect target for that. But I think it's going to be. I just want to highlight something with that Brewhook. If I'm not mistaken, it actually will move units in the order that they were selected. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but if that is the case, then there's an extra little bit of skill added onto that for the technical skill and knowledge that in order to get those Ren Warriors to one consume the other.
Yeah, the Zoltan there will pull the units in order of when you pick them. So the first one you press will move first. So you can. There's some pretty neat combos you can do with stuff like Behemoth. So you can move the opponent's Ren Warrior and Behemoth so that the Ren Warrior eats the Behemoth to deny that Behemoth value and stuff like that. It's definitely a very skill-capped card, I think. And
speaking of some interesting combos, the Kieran coming out from the, I forgot, Gravedigger, I believe. But onto the Commando, moving the Commando first, allowing the Commando ability to go off, and then locking the Commando. I think it's 2 extra points that Finland maybe, I don't know, it's an interesting combination there.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if that was what he planned. I don't know if he expected that to happen. I guess maybe he could have moved one of his own units out of sort of Marigold's row, but maybe he just expected the lock to go off first instead of the movement.
I don't know. And getting corrected from chat, it's a Caretaker that I don't remember every card name, unfortunately. But Caretaker, why did you gotta help me out, A-?
I'm trying. I've gotta keep focused. I'm on a.
No, so the Frightener coming out again, just messing with his movement strategy, but changing up for points. So I might stand corrected. I think I said earlier in this game that you're going to have less points than your opponent over that Marigolds every time. But Finland and Brewhook just kind of taking the lead here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. Maybe we see the first win out here from Finland. I think they've definitely got a very strong hand to be able to do this. That Shield and Skags is going to get huge value on that. The middle row there with the 2 buffs there from the Commandos with they get +2 from moving, and then the Marigolds on that back row for Matt Logan is definitely going to be pretty huge. And we may even see. We saw the Marigolds in the last deck that they were running in the Hensor deck, so maybe they're running Marigolds in this Dagon deck as well. So that's not really going to get much value after this Sheldon Skags. Well, I guess it will get a lot of value from this melee row, but not as much as it could have done with the Sheldon Skags coming down and moving everything from that row.
And I'm finally deciding to knock out that Sheldon Skags, just relying on the rest. I think that's why I said it. I think it's a very interesting matchup because you have so much that you want to do as the Brewhook player. You're trying to interrupt your opponent's strategy while still maintaining your own, and it's probably ramped up the difficulty considerably with this Ren Warrior just still floating around, ticking around, trying to make sure that he doesn't get any more value than he already has, and deciding, when is the right time to do all of these things. When is the right time to play Sheldon? When is the right time to play the movement? And so far, I think piloted incredibly well by Gwent Finland, maintaining points while still having a large swing, still being able to move 2 units to back that siege row, but it's pointed out with the card hovering, just going to get consumed anyway by that Ren Warrior that is just causing so many headaches.
Yeah, they're definitely sort of attempting not to tunnel vision on that Ren Warrior, but also it's definitely hard to ignore it as that. The value that the brand could bring with the Necker there could be potentially large, but they've denied pretty much all its value that it could provide now, and so they're probably just gonna they're just focused on their own units now. They're gonna move that Commander there for the extra 5 points now as the Mercenary will buff it by 3 as well, and it's actually looking very tough here for the Dagon player. I'm not sure there's anything that can really bring them back in this game.
We still see. Yeah. I'm not sure. Well,
I mean that's a start.
I think no matter what, it's going to be a pretty close matchup. But I'm not sure. That seems like more of a cheeky play than anything. Trying to get, I guess, a little bit of extra value off the Ren Warrior, knowing that your opponent's denying as much value as they can with it. I think as the Brewhook player, your game plan is set from this point forward. You're just going to move that 12 strength unit onto the siege row, play the Hailstorm, and hope that at the end of the day you've got more points than them. And that is going to be a very large Hailstorm. But Oh, it's a cheeky play, but I really do like that Rotfiend.
I'm just disappointed it's not premium. The the guide specifically said that you get the utmost value from that premium Rotfiend Bamboozle. So yeah, I think I'm taking -1 points off Mac Logan here for that not being premium. No, I actually really like Rotfiend. I think it's a very good card, but unfortunately it's not found its value here, I guess, because there isn't really much that the Dagon player here can really do to get back in this game. They did actually have that Abaya in deck, which I'm very surprised to see here. They were probably hoping that Gwent Finland drew the Ragnarok, but unfortunately they actually didn't, so won't be getting that much value here. And we're just going to see probably double Hailstorm come out here.
More than likely, but that Hailstorm only being worth about 15 points-ish, and just taking the hard pass instead. So Gwent Finland hanging in there, going for that reverse sweep if able, because they were actually sitting on match point. Team GFR sitting at 2 points up, and Gwent Finland with the win from last game. So, man, it's been good games, and it's a very well-piloted Proof of Hoop deck.
Yeah, very well piloted. They're both teams here I'm very impressed with. They're both showing very good skill. They're both showing very good composure. I'm definitely excited to see how many games this goes down to. Maybe we see a full 5-game series.
Quite possibly, but let's go ahead and hop into the next match here, where Team GFR is still sitting on match point, and Gwent Finland trying to just hang in there and go for sticking around in Radovid versus Dagon. So we have seen this Dagon list already. Do you think that Radovid has enough to counter it?
I definitely think so. This Radovid list is, I'm pretty sure most people will know as probably one of the most optimized lists that has been out recently, and the way it plays is just so good. It can thin out pretty much the entire deck, and then you can choose which cards you can handcraft your round 3 hand and just annihilate the opponent. So yeah, I definitely think this Radovid deck is favored in this matchup.
So a possibly favored matchup and winning the coin flip. So Gwent Finland sitting in a pretty nice spot at this point, just weighing their options again. It's interesting. I think the biggest consideration here is, do you death mold or not? Do you try and knock out those Harpy eggs before they become an issue?
I'm not sure there's any reason to. I guess they're just going to go for that rain there. They're going to go and they're expecting a long round here, I guess. So yeah, they're just going to go for that rain there. They're not really expecting sort of a gold weather. They didn't see any last game, so they're just going to put that rain out. They're expecting the long round. They're going to go for the long haul. Unfortunately, that Harpy hit the middle row, so they're going to get some extra value out of that rain.
And again, this just very high tempo, very quickly, and threatening carryover play from the Dagon player, just showing the strength of the deck, that you're able to just play a 7, have a little bit of that countered, and then just go ahead and consume anyway, and be 15 points up. But still, if we're going to be playing tempo games, then Radovid just has options. We have a little bit of thinning, a little bit of power, just a little bit of everything coming out from Radovid. And should they choose to take this round, I think especially after winning the coin flip, you would not be too worried about going
no, definitely. Yeah, I think going a card down is definitely absolutely fine here. You've got the cards you need. You can pretty much set up that round 3 hand, and yeah, I think you're pretty much settled here. They're probably going to keep playing the slow round here, Gwent Finland. I think they just want to keep the Dagon playing. They want to just thin all their cards out as much as possible. Unfortunately, they didn't actually really draw many things that can thin the deck out. It's probably going to Natalis out sort of, and maybe another Blue Stripe Scout, maybe, because he didn't actually have any other in his hand. So he really wants to thin his deck out so he can get this.
I'm thinking that if he wants to go for that as much thinning, that there is a Reaper Scout still stuck in the deck, being able to pull out another Blue Stripe Scout would be the way to go. Unless he wanted to hold on to that Reaper Scout for later, trying to hit another Dump Energy Cavalry perhaps. But no, we do see it. And with the Commander's Horn in hand as well, it's just going to be a very easy way of just gaining back. There's a lot of reach left in Radovic's hand, and having seen what your opponent was playing literally just the match before, you know that your opponent doesn't, especially now that they've done their initial tempo, they're going to require some setup again before they can try and keep up.
Yeah, definitely. There is the option, I guess, of the Woodland Spirit, but committing it this early and not really having the guarantee of winning the round is kind of a bit risky to play that big card. I guess did they play a Renew? I didn't see a Renew, I don't think. So if they played a Renew, then they could potentially... Yeah, here we go. This is the Woodland Spirit out now. They just want to get that tempo out. They can't really afford to go behind as much. And they have that double fog ticking, so it's going to be pretty brutal here for Gwent Finland.
And we're looking at Finland losing 2 points a round compared to GFR. But, that we didn't see a Renew last game, but I also don't think that we saw all the gold cards last game either, so there definitely could be a Renew still in Team GFR's list. And contemplating that decoy, and if you're expecting a long round and you've already shown that you're not afraid to go a card down, I think that's your line of play.
Oh yeah, definitely. You don't want all that. If you're going to go for that long round, you don't want that fog ticking for however many turns it's going to be. So you just want to get that cleared as soon as possible, as they do. And they're probably going to see maybe infantrymen out next, unless there's... Oh, okay. So we actually see the pass here. Matt Logan's opting for that one card advantage with the carryover. It could potentially help them out a lot here.
Definitely. I think that as soon as you saw that your opponent was going for the long round, but they didn't actually take the point advantage from you, you're just like, I'm out, I'll take my card, and I'll leave. This is just too much. And actually going first and being a card up at the end of the round with carryover, not a bad position to be in for Team GFR.
No, definitely not, but wow, I'm actually really surprised. We actually see the Igni in this deck. I haven't seen Igni in a good while. It's probably... I don't know, what does that actually... what are you thinking about with putting that in their deck?
There's still a few decks out there. I think, if anything, that they're probably just sitting there and being like, you know what? People haven't been respecting the Igni lately. Because I think we've seen it even in this series. A couple of... I think in the semifinals match that we casted earlier, there was triple 10s at some point. I've already seen 2 12s in this series. So, I don't know, the Igni just kind of comes in as a checker, just being like, you know what, if you guys aren't going to respect Igni will come back.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in these sort of tournament scenarios, having that sort of surprise edge is definitely going to help you out in a lot of these scenarios, as they're pretty much... It's what you need, really, if you're going against some sort of similar skill players, like very skilled players. A bit of luck or a bit of surprise factor definitely plays a sort of a bigger part than if you were playing in like normal ladder and stuff. And we actually see the Stennis come out here. I think he's just trying to find as much points as he can so he can get that card advantage back. I don't think he's really gonna play this round out too much longer. Maybe he tries to get the Commander's Horn out so he can get that double Commander's Horn round 3. What do you think?
I think he might be going for that. As you mentioned earlier in this game, Radovic just has the option to really craft what they want their hand to look like round 3, and I think that's exactly what Gwent Finland's doing at this point. They're just trying to threaten, maybe I get that card advantage back, because yes, you had the carryover, but maybe I can actually get ahead on points. But I think that more than anything, they're just trying to set up and decide, okay, what exactly do I want to be playing round 3 versus what he's going to be playing round 3. And the longer this round goes on, the longer you're able to craft that hand, and the longer you're able to tell what your opponent's going to have left.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, they didn't get that card advantage there, so we'll see what Gwent Finland choose to play here. Maybe they go for the pass, maybe they play the Radovid to set up that Commander's Horn, but they just have 2 1-strength units, so that Commander's Horn could really be disrupted quite easily. So yeah, maybe the pass here isn't bad. Like, you've got great cards to play round 3, and if you're going to play round 3, you kind of want a long round 3, as otherwise that Igni isn't really going to do a whole lot, because the opponent will already have that bigger units, because what you've seen from last game, the Vran Warriors are basically the units you want to kill, so they need time to build up for that Igni to hit here.
I think we see a bit of commitment from Gwent Finland because, as you mentioned, if they're going to want to get that Igni value, it's going to have to be off of a long round. And if they're opting to extend this round, then it's just going to have to be from this round, because if they try and, I don't know, be cheeky a little bit and take that pass, but we do see them finally getting a card of high value, getting that Red Warrior out. And something that I actually neglected before is we do see the Karen come out, which I believe is the final of the gold cards that was left that we did not see from Team GFR. So barring an unexpected renew, there should be no weather left if they wanted to go for a longer round, either this round or for next round. But Gwent Finland is kind of in this awkward in-between state where they're trying to get card advantage and they're trying to maybe push for this round, but they've really got to decide quickly.
Wow, considering that was their only play here to actually stay in this round and be on one card up, that could possibly tell Gwent Finland here that they could just go for it. I mean, they have the Igni, they can deny a lot of points from the Dagon player here. They've actually got a really good opportunity to just go for this 2-0 here, I think. Would you expect them to do that? Or do you think they just play it safe?
I think as soon as you see that Hailstorm come out, and I think that was the last card from Team GFR that was going to be able to take out and just be like, you know what, stop, I want to stay tempo, I really want to care about card advantage. That was the last opportunity that they really had to do that. So as soon as you see that go out, I think it's just a green light from Gwent Finland, just being like, all right, we were going for one long round, this is it, and I'll try and beat them on the top deck in case I lose this.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that's probably what they're going to go for here. Maybe we see the Shani out next, just maybe... They still have 50-50 on the Reaver Scout, not Reaver Scout, sorry, the Blue Stripe Scout and the Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry. And if they hit that Dunbanner Heavy Cavalry, that's a huge swing, so that's 8 plus the 18 off the, so that's 26 off that Shani, and that's huge tempo. And then they have the added opportunity of that Vren Warrior Igni on the next turn as well. Unfortunately, the Rot Fiend is definitely gonna.
I think the Rot Fiend threatens, but Gravez is just like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah.
But it's an awkward. As much as like I'm trying to root for Gwent Finland here, they're just in such an awkward position with the remaining cards, and maybe it's that Igni just coming back to bite them. They want to stop all of this from happening, but they still want to get the Igni value, and they still want to be able to put points on their side. And denying, like, it's such a tell here that they do not lock the Vren Warrior.
Yeah, what are you actually thinking? What do you think Mac Logan's thinking right now? Like, there hasn't been an Igni sighting in a good long while, but your opponent just played exactly like they want an Igni. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be tough to see how the mind games play out in this matchup. I think Gwent Finland kind of have to play now. They've committed to this round. They're gonna. I guess they still have the opportunity to pass now, but I think.
I think this is their last opportunity to be like, okay, I'm done. Let's take this to round 3. I'm going for card advantage, because if they play, it's going to have to be Shani next, and then you're just either way you're risking this Igni. You never got the value that you wanted to, and it was such a tell that you didn't lock it, and they go for the pass here, which I think is probably a decent call. You're at least getting your card back, and maybe even going a card up.
Yeah, I think it's very sensible to pass here. They have that huge player, as I was saying earlier, with the Shani on the Stennis. I guess the Dagon player can still disrupt that play, as they can sort of caretaker Stennis if they have it, or Katakan, which they had. They actually come by 1 point. Wow. Damn, that is actually really good for Mike Logan here.
Actually, that Radovid coming back to bite them, because had they locked the Vran Warrior, that would have been 1 less consume, and that would have been equal points.
Well, no, because they played the second Vran Warrior, I think.
Yes, but they're both.
Oh no, because the Vran Warrior, the Vran Warrior
ate the other locked Rot Fiend. So,
oh wow,
that 1 point, that 1 lock coming back to bite them, and I think this Igni is just probably the most awkward card in the mouse of frustration.
It's unfortunate though, because you don't want to get rid of the Igni, because then if you have that heavy cavalry in hand, then the only thing you're pulling with Stennis on the revive is the Blue Stripe Scout, and they actually get punished here with that caretaker. That Stennis is going to be huge. Okay. I guess it's huge in the sense that it denied it from the Northern Realms.
Well, I think it's not the largest point-wise, and actually it did end up being quite a fair few. 17 points all told, but you're just looking at this now. maybe we're looking at Igni value, but where are your points coming from as Radifid? And I think it's just that awkward round 2 and that awkward Igni that's still just a bit of an awkward Igni. Where is it getting the value from? Where are the points for Radifid?
Like they have the Shani, but now they can get a battering ram. Probably is the best thing they can get out. I don't really see a way out of this round. I guess they can steal the armor. Okay, I'd say that's probably the. Wait, that's the same amount from the battering ram, isn't it? So you get the 5, 12. Okay, one more value out of that heavy cavalry, but it's really not a lot to.
A little bit more value because you're not actually killing units on the only row that you're maybe getting an Igni value from.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Oh, and there was that renew.
I'm actually interested into why they chose the K-Run there instead of the Wooden Spirit. I guess Wooden Spirit's 8, and then it's ticking for 2. Yeah, I guess you will get more value out of that K-Run here in that short round. But it's going to be tough here from the Gwent Finland. I don't think, unless there's some miraculous crones, I don't think there's any way of Finland overpowering this Dagon at the moment.
Maybe getting some value off of the Igni on the melee row, but you're just shutting down what your opponent had already played and then only playing an extra 5. So it's just not going to quite be enough. So unfortunately, Gwent Finland will be knocked out and taking our 4th place prize. Team GFR hanging in there and coming back from a 3-0 loss, if I'm not mistaken, 2-6 faction in the other semifinals, and saying, you know what, no, we're taking 3rd from this tournament. So congratulations to both teams for making it this far.
Yeah, definitely. They played very well. They've got through all this brutal weeks of playing TGI, and they've performed very well. They got the 3rd place, definitely not anything to be sad about. They've got a very good position on the board. I'm very impressed with their play today, and yeah, congratulations to them.
Yeah, and congratulations to all of our players participating in the Gwentlemen's Invitational, and especially for anybody who has made it this far. It's quite an accomplishment. This has been several weeks in the making, and we now have our first 2 locks for 3rd and 4th place. Team GFR taking 3rd place overall in the tournament, and Gwent Finland taking 4th place overall in the tournament. Excellent play, excellent, just very highly skilled and highly technical matches towards the end here, and played very well from both sides. So congratulations to both of the players. But I believe that we will take this back over to the host desk, where Jaggeris and Agadon await.
Thank you so much, Dale and A- for the cast. How do you feel those games went, Agadon?
Pretty dominant performance by GFR there, I think, and it was good to see a variety of decks. The commonality of Henselt and the strength of Henselt recently seems to be kind of carrying a few games.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's quite hard to deal with. I mean, even if you're running Calvé, for example, and you have your assassins, as we saw in that first game, you could try and deal with the Henselt, but then when they have options like Stennis and like Shani, it's very difficult for you to stop there being future value, because with the cards we've seen previously in the first series as well, with like Naneki, to put cards back into your deck, it's very easy to still find that Henselt value even if they have counters for your decks. And I think Calvé is one of the decks that does have counters, in those assassins, for example, and it was still shown not to be enough. And then we saw the Henselt again, and then you have to start to wonder, maybe did this come down to issues with the matchups that they choose to ban because this was a strike format?
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of difficult to utilize the strike format to its full effect, I suppose, because of how specific it is. You're targeting a specific matchup. You're not banning out a leader, just one matchup, or a few matchups. And then you still have to sort of. There's just so many options that you still have to deal with, I suppose.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you kind of saw that the Dagon Brewer matchup, that they weren't really bothered about, playing the movement into the Dagon because they were comfortable with that. That matchup wasn't banned, which means that the teams playing were comfortable. I guess maybe the Dagon team thought that, well, Dagon's usually pretty okay, and the movement team thought, we can disrupt this, so we have those options. And I think when it comes to this kind of format, which isn't as well known in the Gwent scene in terms of tournaments, that it can lead to some very interesting games.
Yeah. Well, now it's that time. All that's left is the grand final. So everything has sort of led up to this moment, and the game will be between Team Pixie and the 6th faction, of course. So these teams are going to be fighting for the lion's share of the prize pool. Do you have anything to add, Jaggers? Any predictions?
I mean, I'd like to see 6th faction take it. I've been saying all along that I'm really excited for Korean Gwent, and I feel like they have the potential, as Gwent grows in that region, to be a powerhouse. So I've been kind of cheering for them right the way through this bracketed stage. But, we saw Team Pixie, we saw how they innovate with their decks. We saw the kind of creative cards that they include with the Scorch and with the Mardrome, and we saw just how clinical they can be. So, I feel like this could be anyone's game, and I think this might be the time we finally see one of these matches go to 5 games.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out soon. So I guess we'll hand it over to our lovely hosts, Jagras and Agadon. Oh, that's us.
Yeah, due to obviously some technical issues, me and Agadon are actually casting this matchup. So what have we got? We've got a Dagon, as you can see here, and not too bad of a hand. We've got a Harpy, but you can always blacklist that, and they're okay to mulligan nice and early because you're going to be drawing them out anyway with things like your Solano Harpies. So expecting to see that thrown here. Sometimes people like to hold on to the neck of round 1. I personally typically mulligan it and then find it round 2, but we'll see what happens, and there it goes. And not too bad of a hand. We've got Karen and Caretaker, but not that Woodland Spirit that people like to play.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of mulliganing away basically everything that isn't Solano Harpies and things to consume the eggs. Obviously, that's sort of the main point engine of the deck, and you need to be able to sort of get that out early to thin the Harpies and whatnot. One of the main problems with Dagon decks are that you can brick your hands quite severely, as we've seen in previous games in the tournament, and kind of avoiding doing that is sort of part of the key to victory, I feel like.
And you can see that 6th faction, they do have those 2 neckers in hand, so they're going to be in a little bit of a trickier spot if this round goes long. And as it's a mirror, it's kind of going to be interesting to see how the players utilize their cards. We have a Toad Prince in the hands of 6th faction, but not necessarily any great targets to eat with it, so you maybe have to hope for the lucky top deck. But they do have that Woodland Spirit, which is going to allow them to play the Harpies out of their deck and start to get some damage, hopefully hit those eggs. We'll see what happens here with the Harpy, and there's an egg, which you got to be happy for, plus the Fog. It's a pretty nice play.
Yeah, the Harpies hit the lowest units, so you're guaranteed to snipe one of the eggs. So it's a really powerful counter. And we still see the Vran coming down from Pixie here to just capitalize on the value from the egg or not. The Ekamara, they're thinking about whether they want to start setting up carryover. Playing an Ekamara early here is sort of risky because you can, it's vulnerable to removal or whatnot.
And I think what that tells us is that he doesn't want to play that Vran Warrior into that Fog. Like, rather than play the Vran into the Fog and eat the egg that way, he's chosen to play the Ekamara. Like you say, it's risky in that it becomes kind of a target, but with the state of monsters at the moment, not everyone is running Lock, although we actually see that the Team Pixie is running Cleaver instead of a Morvod. How do you feel about that?
I think there's a lot of argument for Cleaver being pretty decent in monsters, because Morvod, a lot of the time you'll actually want to unlock your Neckers with your Lock, and Morvod being a 5 versus Cleaver being a 9 allows you to actually put down reasonable tempo whilst unlocking your Necker, to ensure that you have your carryover set up. And you, like in that case, obviously Morvod doesn't get any benefit from the added effect of doing damage to enemies. So Pixie's just going to throw down the Dagon here and start laying down some hurt on the 6th faction's Ekamara, and it being all alone on that row kind of makes it the primary target for that fog. But it still can get hit a few times before it's actually reduced below its base strength anyway.
Yeah, I think 6th faction has quite a strong lead here, but you have to wonder, are they going to decide? Because sometimes you do see players do this, is to play both of those fogs into the first round. We don't see any weather clear coming out of Team Pixie. You can see the Abaya is in their deck, so they did run it, but they don't have it. So this might be a good round for 6th faction to play that Dagon. Obviously, they don't know that. They're taking a risk here. But if they play that on the back row, they're going to have the same effect. They're going to be able to start whittling away that Ekamara and maybe start to deal more damage to it, which is always good.
Yeah, and we see 6th faction dropping the Vran here, and obviously it's important to get that Vran ticking because every 2 turns is an extra 3 points effectively to your Neckers cumulatively. And because each team here only has 1 Vran available, they were sort of testing the waters with the Ekamaras and whatnot, kind of reluctant to throw it down. But now that the 6th faction has their Vran down, they're generating points for their Neckers, and Team Pixie isn't. So Team Pixie either has to think about putting a Vran down or kind of setting up some large tempo or kind of getting out of the round.
Yeah, you can see them occasionally hovering that Frightener, maybe thinking about using that to move the Vran Warrior. It is obviously a nice play in that once you move the Vran Warrior onto a different row, it no longer has the targets lined up for it to eat, and you'd have to reposition new targets. But with them already behind, it's also kind of a easy pass then for 6th faction if they want to kind of just leave this round. And you can see instead they've opted for that Rot Fiend play.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're playing into the fog so that they don't necessarily have to consume it to activate the Death Wish, I suppose. Maybe it's sort of a long-term insurance strategy. Otherwise, they can just eat it with a Vran or an Ekamara or whatnot to trigger the effect. And it's going to be a fair amount of points as the 6th faction's ranged row is relatively stacked at the moment.
Yeah, there are a lot of units on there for that Rot Fiend to hit. The thing is, if you're going to let it die to fog, that's going to take, 6, 7, possibly 8 rounds with the 2 Harpies on the board. And you can see 6th faction has decided, we've got nice fog ticks, we've got enough points, we don't really want to be dealing with the Rot Fiend that they're maybe going to eat, and we'll just kind of let them have it. We've got our carryover, they've got their carryover. And I think maybe part of that is having those 2 Neckers in hand. You're starting to lose out on options. They don't want to maybe Toad Prince, because what are you going to eat? You're going to eat your Frightener, but then, you've eaten your Frightener. Abaya, maybe not so useful in this matchup, with the effects, often use the Venom effect. There's not great setup for that, so I think this is a kind of safe enough round to bow out and just take that 1 card advantage.
Yeah, and now the decision to be made by Team Pixie is basically whether to use the Vran or the Ekamara here. Using the Vran is a big commitment because you don't really have a point engine for future rounds. And you don't have a way to sustainably buff up your Neckers. But committing the Ekamara here, which is what they end up going with, means that you've committed basically all of your carryover to 1 round. They can still draw into Neckers, of course, but that only really puts them on even footing with the 6th faction going into round 3, because they'll presumably play out their Neckers as well.
Yep, so now it kind of comes down to mulligans and draws, and you can see lots and lots of gold in the hand of Team Pixie and 6th faction, and this kind of happens a lot in these mirror matches. There's only so much tech you can do, and often it does come down to those draws, and Team Pixie has I would say, really favorable hand, especially with that Mardrome, which is going to, I believe, does it kill Neckers? I know it used to.
It does banish them, yes.
Yeah, banish those Neckers.
Bad news for the 6th faction, though. Drawing that Harpy means that they couldn't mulligan away. Well, they ended up mulliganing away a Necker, but they now have a sort of dead 4-drop in hand, basically. And it's a shame because it was on one tick left on the timer as well.
Yeah, it is hard to see. They could potentially, hold it until the final round, but the question is, what are Team Pixie going to do into this round? And as they have more carryover, I feel like this is a round that they're going to, maybe want to play into a little bit. They have a nice hand. They've got that Mardrome, so they can kind of deal with 6th faction's carryover, which they totally see coming because, this is a Dagon matchup. So if I were them, I would play into this round and basically, wait until they play that Necker, clear it up, and then just try and win the final round with carryover, even though you're playing into this round 1 card down.
Yeah, and they do have the Frightener, so in their mind they can sort of fix that card advantage situation a little bit, but obviously the 6th faction has access to theirs also, and they do go with the line of play of playing into this round. They want to get their Vran down. They know that at the current stage, the 6 factions' Neckers are slightly bigger based on how many consumes have happened. So they want to get their Vran down, start consuming, start getting their Neckers big, and then basically try and lean on that as a bit of a win condition going into round 3.
Yeah, I think so. I think with this matchup, we've got the weather clear on the side of 6th faction, which is nice to maybe remove some points from the Foglet when it comes out. But we've seen the Fog already committed. They don't have Woodland Spirit in hand, so that's only 8 value. I mean, you've got the Graveyard Grief, and Graveyard Grief can be really interesting in this matchup because if you have Caretaker, then you can kind of throw away targets that you don't want your opponent to caretake, or you can put targets into their graveyard that you would like to have access to with Caretaker. So you can actually try and find yourself, say, a Vran Warrior or a Harpy or what have you, whenever you like, by using those Griffins. So even though he maybe doesn't have value in that Griffin in terms of weather clear, we should see some value in it, maybe with the graveyard switching.
Yeah, and we might see some sort of epic ninja play where the Team Pixies Gravekeeper gets denied some value or something. Have to see how that plays out. This is a really early Necker throwdown by 6th faction, so they're pretty confident that it's not going to get controlled in any way by the looks of things. And Team Pixie are going to throw their Spire here, which makes sense to do in this round. And they draw another Vran. That's not really something you want to see in this situation. You already have 1 down. You don't really have many targets that you can feed to the second Vran. There's potentially the option to Caretaker a Soleno Harpy and feed the Vran some eggs or something for some extra value. But
I mean, the question then becomes, what did you want to see? Potentially Doragari for that Drowner play, because, the back row is getting pretty stacked. They've got the Marigolds in hand, so there's always a nice synergy there. You can draw Woodland Spirit with the Gales, and then you've got either a Buyer or Cleaver. I mean, how useful is Cleaver going to be in terms of lock targets when you have that Mardrome ready for the Neckers? The other lock targets that you see typically is the Vran Warrior, but we haven't seen any of those, and there's none in hand. So
I mean, you could always use the Mardrome to reset the Toad if we used either Frightener or something for a reasonable amount of value still, and then you still get the Cleaver value. Looks like they're going for the Cleaver. Interesting. So they do want to save the Mardrome.
I think that's a fair play, especially if you're going to be drawing that Woodland Spirit in the final round, which Team Pixie now know that they're going to do, which is a guaranteed draw. So a really nice play there, pulling the Foglet, pulling the remaining Harpy, it should do, provided they don't obviously draw it with the Mulligan, getting that damage out, getting those Wolves on the board, and that's giving them kind of options for some tempo in the final round. The lock, really good then onto the Necker. If they unlock it, they have the Mardrome as a backup, so it's quite a comfortable play to make. Then you've got your Neckers ready to play out, and the Vran Warrior in hand, which you can then use to eat the Neckers, because obviously they do have the 2 left in the deck, so then if they play 1, pull 1, eat 1, that pulls the 3rd, and that's gonna set them up really nicely. And I do think at the moment I would say that this is Team Pixie's game to lose.
Yeah, well, the Frightener does come down from 6th faction just to respond to the card advantage situation, I suppose, and they're stacking up that back row in case they need to use the Hailstorm this round. It's likely, or probably not going to be too useful next round, as next round's looking very short, so they probably want to kind of get it out of their hand while they can, try and sort of get a win on even cards if they can. And the Hailstorm from Team Pixie won't be quite as powerful, as the rows of 6th faction aren't as stacked at the moment. But the 6th faction has a lot of cards that they don't really get a lot out of at the moment, so if Team Pixie decide to push here, they could potentially go a few cards up, or maybe 1 or 2 cards up, and maybe 2-0, depending on what the Toad pulls into.
Yeah, I think this is a nice round to push into. I mean, obviously Team Pixie can't see 6th faction's hand, but they can see their own hand, and their hand is very comfortable. Seeing that Hailstorm there, I guess, is kind of telling. I would say that 6th faction doesn't have a lot in their hand, 6 cards, and they felt that was the point at which they were going to play Hailstorm. And you're completely right. The Ekamara, you can eat an egg, you can get the bonus 4 from that, but you're not getting any extra points on that Necker because it's locked. You get the 6 carryover, but they have a 9 Necker sitting there, so you're not even keeping up to date with them and their carryover, and you kind of, it almost gets to the point where you've got to start to, rely on lucky Toad top decks, and they can eat the Griffin. Griffins I really like because they're an option to eat if you don't draw your Manticore or whatever it is you tend to want to play with the Toad Prince. So, they have that option, but then as soon as they eat the Griffin, the Woodland Spirit that Team Pixie is drawing on the next round then, gains even more value.
Yeah, I mean, having the guaranteed draw into the Woodland plus guaranteed NECA carryover, and these NECAs are also getting pretty swole at the moment, so it's looking pretty rough for the 6th faction, to be honest. We see the Abaya come out to sort of tie things up, and the Fog will push them over and just keep them ahead. I mean, they're ahead of cut up, it's not bad, but they still have 2 relatively meh cards versus a Caretaker that could generate a lot of value here. The Mardrum's not going to do anything too spectacular. Probably resets the opposing Ekamara.
Yeah, so the decision then here is, do you want to play into the round, or do you want to wait with this and, wait to see some of these targets go into the graveyard, say the Abaya, for example. But you're not really going to see units stacked up this in the next round because there's so few cards remaining. So potentially it's worth just going in like this and dropping out those eggs, getting them eaten up, stacking up your Vran Warriors, and just putting more and more pressure on the 6th faction, because I feel like in the way that they've been playing, they have been signaling that their hand isn't maybe the best. Yeah,
for sure. And having both of these Vrans down, like every 2 turns, your NECA is gaining 2 points for next round. So why would you not play into it? And Team Pixie are basically going all in here. There's no reason not to, because even if they spend all their cards, they're still getting, like a 13, 14 point NECA.
Yeah,
the Toad draw was okay there, but not great.
No, I don't think that's what you want to see with a Toad. They were looking for something that was going to be pretty sweeping. And, there's the pass coming out from Team Pixie. They've got the Mardrum in hand. And, they could have maybe Mardrumed the Toad, gotten that 8 points of value out of it, for example. But on the flip side, I don't think they want that Vran Warrior to eat that NECA, because then they have their carryover just gone. So that's them saying, I don't want this eat to happen, so play your cards.
Yeah, there's potentially sort of maybe a next level play where you could play the Harpy to stay behind and then play the Vran to take the lead and get the NECA eaten so there's no carryover. I don't know if that's in the realms of being worth it. I don't really do the math, but they dropped the Vran and it's a Mardrom versus a Harpy at the moment. So I assume that both of these are going to be mulliganed away, and Team Pixie are looking to be in a very dominant position. They got the guaranteed Woodland, they have the carryover. And drawing a Vran in round 3 is obviously a really sad time for the 6th faction, although they will be able to cycle that NECA.
Yeah, they have the option to cycle that NECA, and that was kind of a draw that is really useful for them, having lost the carryover, Team Pixie being kind of very controlling in that matter. But, even with the NECA cycling, that's only another 9 points, so when you're looking at a Woodland Spirit and an Abaya, it's not going to be enough.
No, so Team Pixie will take this game, basically.
And, this is just kind of goes to show with Team Pixie the kind of level of play that they have, the kind of changes that they've made to their decks, the creativity that they have in the cards that they play. Yes, with this sort of mirror, it does come down a lot to top decks. You're running a deck that bricks quite easily. You've got 3 NECAs, you've often got 3 Harpies, you've got a Foglet, you want none of them. This is definitely a risky deck to play. And the mirror, it could have gone either way, I think, depending on how the draws went. I don't feel like necessarily this was down to 6th faction's lack of skill, although I will say that I think Team Pixie with their Mardrum, for example, were kind of ready for this mirror more so than 6th faction.
Well, having said that, the Mardrum didn't really achieve any value in the end. But yeah, Team Pixie seems to opt for this sort of more control-y tech choices in their decks. And obviously that sort of speaks to their playstyle a little bit. They like to be in control of the situation, and they were definitely in control of that game.
You can see that in terms of the bans, they weren't really... the rest of the kind of Dagon matches, a lot of them being banned out. Brewer versus Dagon, banned. Radovid versus Dagon, banned. Calvé versus Dagon, banned. People do not want to see Dagon. They're more comfortable, I guess, going into, say, Northern Realms and the Scoia'tael. Maybe we'll see, we did see Calvé on there, so maybe we'll see some Nilfgaard. But here we have an Ithne versus a Hensel. How do you feel about this?
Well, seeing these 3 siege supports in the hand is a bit awkward for the Hensel player, because you obviously want to kind of be Henselting them out if possible. The matchup in general, I would say that it's kind of not really heavily favored one way or the other. Both of these decks sort of benefit from long rounds. Obviously, the Ethne deck wants to be buffing up Farseers and Doldothan Protectors. Henselt wants to just slam lots and lots of things on the board. And we've seen this field medic variant of Henselt be able to just pump out a crazy amount of thinning and a crazy amount of points with relatively few cards played. And that may be enough to sort of overcome the raw power that the Ethne deck can put out in terms of its Farseers and its boosts.
Yeah, I think with Henselt here, you know, the interesting thing, there's the just the straight pass that you actually often see with Ethne. They like to have card advantage. They're like, we're just not going to play round 1. You can play something. And you can see them hovering that 1 point Reaver Scout, thinking, you know what, maybe we'll just throw this out. The thing is, whatever they play here, they maybe have to be aware of not having access to that with Henselt, but then they have Shani and Naneki in hand, so they're more or less safe to play whatever they like. And having Henselt available for a future round means playing something like a Kidweni, like a Reaver Scout, whatever, is kind of safe because you can bring it back, and also you've got those tempo plays with the Henselt, so it's kind of okay to play more or less whatever here because, you know, you can always bring it back, and that's pretty nice. Saying that, 6th faction Ethne, a lot of control. We're going to see probably a lot of Alzur's Thunders, so you can guarantee that they're going to be trying to deny those Henselt targets left, right, and center. And this is where it gets interesting because you have to see who comes out on top, especially with Team Pixie having that Shani and that Naneki in hand.
Yeah, now do you think we'll see a pass coming out here? Usually this sort of deck, especially with the siege supports, does want a long round 3. But as you mentioned, they are probably aware that a lot of their sort of synergies are going to be controlled. And then in that case, do you really want to be playing a long round 3 against an Ethne who's just dropping fat Farseers and whatnot?
I mean, I think you have to play into this one a little bit because the other thing to be aware of is you've got that Naneki in hand. If you pass here, you've got nothing in your graveyard. I mean, admittedly, 6th faction are definitely going to be putting things into your graveyard, but are they going to be the things that you want? Whereas here, you can play the things that you want to end up in your graveyard, then Naneki them on round 3 and Shani them and then Henselt them. You know, that's a play that we've seen Team Pixie do previously, and, you know, it worked out really well for them. So I would imagine that they'll play into this round quite comfortably and try and drain out some of those kind of cards in the 6th faction's hand.
Yep, and we do see the siege support coming down, which is basically a declaration of prepare yourself, this one's going to go long. The 6th faction just kind of says no to that, though, and just zaps that straight off the board. The other thing is that because there's a DJ in hand, you want to sort of thin before you spin, a lot of the time, so that you can kind of guarantee a bit more value from your DJ. So, and also with the Scorch being in hand, a long round is kind of okay because you're going to get a gigantic Farseer Scorch off at some point, or if the stars align, perhaps a double Scorch, or maybe even a triple Scorch.
And you see that there is a rally that I don't think the 6th faction wanted. You're looking for your Farseers there. You're not looking for your Protectors. A 7th Protector is not something that you really want on the board, especially with Death Mold in your opponent's hand, because they're just like, nope, none of this, mate, we're good. I think Team Pixie are actually quite well prepared for this round. They've got that Scorch, and a lot of people think, you know, Scorch is a risky run. I agree, Scorch is a risky run. You're running DJ Extra, you pull a Scorch, you could kind of hit yourself in the face, especially if you're running Kidweni and you're buffing everything that you're playing, those poor infantry, for example. Often you end up with big targets. But in this matchup, you know, that Scorch is exactly what you want to see because you know that they're going to have big Farseers and you know that they're going to have big Protectors. So you feel, I would say, quite comfortable in terms of your tempo versus their tempo. And if I were Team Pixie, I wouldn't be sweating it too hard at this stage of the game.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You think that you're going to see big Farseers, but the Six Factions hand is actually kind of awkward because they have no Protector in hand, which means that they can't actually buff their Farseers, which is why they haven't played them yet, because you have to buff a unit in hand for the Farseers to be buffed. And that's not really something that can actually happen at this point. So the Six Faction kind of don't actually really have much of a way to generate points here, to be honest. They're going to have to throw away a lot of resources trying to keep up.
Yeah, they're in a really awkward spot now that you mention it. You know, Last Wish, that draws things that you play. And you saw that they did draw that Protector, but then it got, you know, just straight taken out. So they're in a really tricky spot, even with that dry pass in round one, which also gives you that extra mulligan to make sure that you've got the Protectors in hand. They've kind of, again, found themselves in a bit of an awkward spot in terms of the hand, as we just saw in that monster versus monster matchup. And I think this is going to be a really tough one for them to play, especially then looking at Team Pixie's hands, where you've got the Dijkstra, you've got the Shani, you've got the Reinforcements, you've got the Neneke, you've got the Scorch, you've got a lot of really great tools to kind of mess up Six Factions Day.
Yeah, and we're going to see Field Medic wombo combo here, hopefully. I kind of like to see the Field Medic into Reaver Scout into Field Medic kind of thing. It's fun to watch, but we do end up seeing Field Medic into Battering Ram. There's no crewman around, so this Battering Ram isn't really too devastating. It's going to be okay value.
But they can use it to activate their Scorch, right? You hit the Farseer, then the Lafana Protector is now the bigger target, and that could potentially then allow them to Scorch, which then stops the Farseers from ticking, because I'm wondering if Team Pixie have realized that Sixth Faction don't have any Protectors in their hand, especially as they've now seen two of them played, and based on the kind of strategy and the lack of special cards the Sixth Faction have been playing, I think that can be quite telling about the fact that they don't have those options in their hands.
Yeah, I think that the early Ethne was a really big tell that they're in trouble. And obviously Team Pixie are most likely going to be looking to capitalize on that as much as possible. And they're just kind of staying ahead barely at the moment. And they are a card up, so it's not the end of the world.
I mean, it's not the end of the world. That is... I don't know. I feel like at this point it might just be... You know, we've got the Protector on the board, so that's then getting buffed, and that is an ally. So with the Farseer buffs if you boost a unit in your hand or on the board, not in your deck. So you need those Protectors either in your hand or on the board. And while they've got one on the board now, and that's kind of nice and safe for them, that I don't know how long that is going to last. And potentially what I think Team Pixie will do here is hold off and wait, because that Farseer is getting 2 points per round, right? That Protector is getting 1. So if they play a single spell here, those two are both going to be on the same number of points, and I think they're both going to be worth 12, as you can see here. So suddenly, you know, that Scorch is looking a lot hotter than it was previously.
Yeah, I think if the Scorch happens here, it's kind of GG, maybe, because that Protector is sort of the last straw in terms of their point-generating engine, the Sixth Faction. And if it's taken out, they are then forced, which it is, they're now going to be forced to possibly Alzas out their last Protector, get a Farseer down, and then that's their last Protector. And then how do they win round 3? So it's not looking good for them at all.
Yeah, and I think this is just teams not expecting Scorch. You know, this is something that I 100% would have taken that Scorch. You know, 24-point Scorch, killing their Farseer, killing their Protector, stopping that kind of point generation from ticking over is just exactly what Team Pixie wants to do here. And, you know, if I'm Sixth Faction at this point, I'm almost, you know, trying to make a plan for the next game, because you've lost those points. You don't have a lot of options in terms of what you want to play. I mean, yes, you can Glace, and I believe you can pull the reinforcements from that. So you have an option in that regard, and then you can find your last Protector. You can also Alzas it, but at this point, you know, they've not got a lot of options with the Glace. You've got reinforcements, like I say, you can Scorch, but, you know, you're not going to Scorch yourself. That's just questionable. You wait out.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's looking like an okay play, to be honest.
I mean, at this point, you know, if I were them, maybe you just Scorch yourself and go for that prize of, you know, misplay of the tournament, because there is a prize involved for the most interesting, silly, creative, what have you, play in TGI. So maybe you go for that one and then go for the grand prize in a later match. But then going 2-0 down is got to be very disheartening, because then you're going to need that reverse sweep.
Yeah, and we see Team Pixie have sort of had enough here. They've got all the 3 protectors out, and they're like, we're happy with that, we'll take it. They're going to just pass, and 16 points is pretty significant, a pretty significant margin to make up here for the 6th faction. They're going to have to go a card down. I mean, what's their plan here? Like a Farseer and then the Hailstorm, maybe?
I mean, you could go a Glace Reinforcements, but what have they got left in their deck? They've already played one of their Mercs. I think they've played 2 Farseers, so you could maybe go for the Farseer, like the 9, but then you only get an 8. A 9 and 8, that's 17. I think that's just enough. Well, that would be just enough.
Yeah, 17 is just enough.
But that's obviously, we're assuming, I think they've only played the 1 Farseer, so you would expect there to be 1 more in the deck. So yeah, I think they possibly could have taken that with 1 card if they'd gone for the Aglace play. But then if you go for the Aglace play, you can't then take their Commander's Horn, which you know they're probably going to play. So,
well,
I don't know.
I mean, do you want to take the Commander's Horn? How are you going to have enough targets to get a reasonable amount of value out of it? I don't really see that the Aglace is going to do a whole lot next round, to be honest, at all.
So maybe that Aglace Reinforcements Farseer would have been the better play to also give you even cards, because, you know, them going cards down, no protectors, Shani, Dijkstra, Naneke, Henselt, Commander's Horn. This is just, it's kind of devastating to see. And you must imagine 6th faction are just hoping that, you know, they've got a bad hand. That's what you've got to hope. You've got to hope that Northern Realms has a bad hand, but Northern Realms is Northern Realms, and they have lots of thinning. They have loads of fantastic tempo cards, you know.
And they don't even think about the mulligan here. They're just like, yep, we're good with this. And you know what else is devastating? Your mispronunciation of DJ Extra.
Okay, fine. I apologize. I will give DJ his due credence. So we've got a drought, and we've got a artifact compression, but there's not necessarily going to be. I don't feel like there's going to be, you know, 1 big target that you want to get rid of with that. I guess you hold it and you wait for their Henselt target, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's actually just going to deny the Henselt, basically. You would assume that the Shani, like Shaniing a siege support here, perhaps, after Naneke, I don't know. They have so many options that it's kind of hard to nail down a line of play. Like, they'll all kind of work. So yeah, I think
they've got options.
And it is going to be siege supports.
Yeah, but even if that gets denied, you've got the Shani to pull something, and then you can use Henselt. Even if it's not for 2 cards, maybe Henselt just for the 1 draw. They're still going to see value in this Henselt, even with what 6th faction have. And I guess with the drought, they're hoping that Team Pixie will stack a row and that they'll get some value out of Marigolds. I mean, we would expect to see Team Pixie to stack a row because there's a drought and because they have a Commander's Horn in hand. It makes sense to stack a few units, but I don't think it's going to be enough for 6th faction. I think it's going to be very difficult for them, especially with that Aglace, you know, not having a lot of great options to pull.
Yeah. I mean, this Farseer isn't really... It's an 8. It's never getting any more points than that. The Aglaeus, as you say, isn't really going to hit anything great. And the Hailstorm value is kind of being cannibalized by the other removal at the moment.
Oh, and, Eskel.
Yeah, DJ into Eskel siege support is more than enough. The Reaver Scout can still be used to pull a siege support. Henselt's like not really useful. Either the Reaver Scout here or Henselt is dead, but it possibly doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you're definitely not getting value out of 1. Ooh, you're not getting that much value out of either. I guess now they're just targets for Commander's Horn, right? You just stack them up. I think with the Commander's Horn, it's not going to... that Marigold's Hailstorm, I don't think it's going to be enough for 6th faction because they have to play it now. And then you play the... Interesting,
the
play
drought's
that.
Keep ticking, though, and that's not enough. Sad times. They kind of pulled that back to a reasonably close margin, honestly. 5 points considering that they had to burn out basically all of their win conditions in round 2. That's a pretty good showing. It was kind of inevitable that Pixie were going to take that, but they brought it back a little bit in the end, so that was an interesting game.
Yeah, I think so. I think considering how, just bleak it looked in round 2, they did give it a fair, they had a fair go at it. They did really kind of try to bring that back. I think with the Dijkstra, we didn't get anything in terms of targets for Hensel. I'm not sure exactly what they had left in their deck. I think they only had one of a lot of things, but maybe
battering
if
rams.
you just managed, battering rams, that was probably what they were looking for there. So losing that was a little bit painful, but the Commander's Horn is just, you toot and you win, and that's kind of how it's going to go down. So 2-0 down. What do you think? Do you think Sixth Faction can claw it back for game 3? They do get to pick the match. That's how this works. So if you lose a matchup in Strike, I believe you then pick the next matchup that you go into until eventually all 5 are played, or one team gets 3 points. So they've picked their Henselt into... Oh, it's a Henselt mirror.
Yeah, so... It's interesting. I think that only one of these decks is running Field Medics. I might be getting that wrong.
We know that Team Pixie are running Field Medics. I don't believe we've seen Sixth Faction's deck at all, and we don't know who is currently mulliganing here. I think it's Gravekeeper. It says Grave Fever over on the left. I have no idea. Yeah, so that would have been, I believe, Crash Overlord. So that would have been, my bad, that would have been Pixie's mulligan. So we know Pixie are running Field Medics. We don't know if Sixth Faction are running Field Medics. We don't know exactly what they've gone for with their strategy, but we have seen this Henselt deck be really dominant by Team Pixie, both in the semi-finals and now here in the finals, one game already. So, this might be GG for the Sixth Faction.
I have a little faith. I think I think that the Scorch is going to be really kind of awkward in this matchup, to be honest, because everyone's sort of playing similar strength units, and it's going to be about timing that Scorch, sort of fitting it in the window where before it becomes dead, I suppose.
Yeah, and Sixth Faction know about that Scorch. They got burned. They got super burned in the last game, and once burned, I guess twice shy. So I think they're going to be very aware of how they utilize their cards, how they utilize things like their battering rams, for example, and how they utilize things like Commander's Horn. I think that's something that they're going to have to be very, very, very patient with, because they're aware that this Scorch exists. And as soon as you're aware that your opponent's playing Scorch, it's definitely something that you need to focus on, especially here in the finals of the Gwentlemen Invitational. And these teams have played a lot of games. I think at this point they kind of know what it is they're supposed to be thinking about. Yeah,
you would imagine so. And here we see this battering ram coming in just to deny the siege support, which they're probably a bit sad to see another one just come straight down. They're thinking we'll deny the Henselt. No such luck.
I mean, we've seen time and time again players try to deny Henselt and deny Henselt and deny Henselt, and Henselt will just not be denied. He is doing his own thing. Only last game we actually saw him, just be his little 3 points and kind of get on with his life. But Sixth Faction
7 points with the Commander's Horn, so
Sixth Faction what, we don't want you to have units, so let's play some Philippa with all of her no-eyed glory.
Yeah, and Team Pixie's just gonna answer back with a battering ram. Just gonna ram the Sixth Faction's ram, and it's kind of a very slow opening to this round. Everyone's just kind of removing everyone else's stuff, and no one really wants to commit much. So
yeah, it's almost like a game of Henselt chicken is kind of how it feels like. Just battering each other a wee bit. A little bit of Scottish in them. We like our things battered. They like their things battered. That's kind of how this one seems to be going down. But I think this mirror is a really tricky one to play, because you have to work out how you play your units in terms of how you play your Henselt, in terms of the control that the opposition has. Fortunately, I don't think the Sixth Faction's hand is completely terrible this game around. So hopefully we'll see, now that they've had some decent draws, they'll get a chance to shine maybe. But you can see they've actually opted for the the blue stripe commandos rather than the field medics. How do you feel about that?
I mean they're just solid, right? They've been a staple for God knows how long, and you can't really go too wrong with them. They're the only kind of cards that you don't want to draw in this sort of deck, so I don't think you're kind of bricking your hands overly by having them. The Henselt and the battering rams here coming in from Team Pixie is pretty devastating. That's quite a big point swing, utilizing the crewmen on the Henselt to get the max value out of these rams.
Yeah, and especially once Sixth Faction put down all of those, delicious 3-strength targets, I think that is, the time when you're like, let's just go for this and let's just, start to get some points on the board and start to kind of get this round moving.
Yeah, it's interesting that the PFIs are usually kind of point engines for this deck in combination with siege supports, but the siege supports have, for the most part, been casualties of war so far. So Pixie's PFI is relatively meh at the moment. It's just going to be the flat 10 points.
You say meh, and then you say 10 points.
Well, I mean, in this kind of day and age where 30-point bronzes are not an uncommon sight. Okay, so Henselt's coming down for the Sixth Faction, pulling out the siege supports, and now, in contrast, their PFIs are going to be worth, 10 plus a lot?
19.
3 plus
19.
3 plus 3, 19, right?
Yeah,
so,
but you know about that Scorch, so I guess with PFI it's okay because you get a 6 and then you get 2 2s. So you'll have a 9, basically. And whilst the 9 will be the biggest unit on the board, if they want a Scorch, the Scorch is just a 9. And, 9-point silvers in this day and age when we have our 19-point bronzes, is that really a great play? I can't say that it is. I think, I think Sixth Faction are quite, safe in how they play into this round, even with the Scorch.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think the Scorch is ever really going to get gigantic value unless there's some sort of misplay that aligns things with Commander's Horn or something. I don't really see that happening. And it looks like Pixie are going to go for John here, and this is maybe going to be a Commander's Horn.
Yeah.
Judging by the placement, which will actually block out the Scorch.
I feel like they've kind of accepted the fact that they're not really playing Scorch in this round. This is where they kind of have to play it, but if you play it, you'll be, you're not catching up. Ooh. This is the situation. It's all about kind of tempo. Yeah, and they want to get that. They want to get some tempo plays here. Fortunately for them, Stennis is a nice tempo play into a PFI, which is going to get a little bit of love from that K20. It's not like Six Factions for infantry, which are just getting all of the love from all of the K20. They're like, just take my love. That's not exactly what's going on. But we were saying kind of they needed a tempo play there to catch up because they didn't want to go 2 cards down. And the DJ Extra, are you happy now? The DJ Extra was the tempo play that they needed. But now you don't have Stennis. Now you don't have Eskel. You've got a lot of tempo, but you've got Shani in deck, you've got Naneki in deck, but you need to find them. Well,
the thing is that there's still a lot of bronzes in deck. Comparative to how many cards are left in the deck. So, yeah, it might be a little tough. You still have John to thin a little bit. Still kind of think the Sixth Faction are just going to get carried through this round by the multiple siege supports. It's just too many points to really deal with.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing is, if you look at that middle row as well, if they do choose to play the Commander's Horn, the highest unit on that row is a 7. So it's not even a situation where if they Commander's Horn, suddenly multiple Scorch targets pop up. That's not going to be the case at all. And you see them pulling a Dun Banana there, a Dun Banner heavy cavalry, I believe it is. Yeah. How do you feel about, so this is then the thing, field medics versus Dun Bananas?
Well, I mean, the Dun Banana plus the Stennis there was just a casual 20-point play, which, is a bit like too powerful maybe for a bronze, but the Scorch is activated by that play, which actually gives Team Pixie another kind of look into the round, perhaps. A 15-point silver is not terrible. However, the Hailstorm from Sixth Faction on the front row is going to be quite large, or whichever row ends up being Commander's Horn. So realistically, the Sixth Faction are going to win this round. Yeah,
and you can tell they feel quite comfortable with it, just playing out their cards. They've got the Dijkstra, they've got the Marigolds. I'd imagine what they'll go for here is probably... I think they'll go for the Marigolds because you're not going to get good value out of it in a future round. And Dijkstra
use it this round.
it's such a good tempo play. So you want to hold him as well. So in both senses of the world, like, you want to play Marigolds because this is when you're going to get value on it. And you don't want to play Dijkstra because he's going to be huge on the next round. So...
Yep.
And you can see Team Pixie they've had enough. Well,
they can't play the Scorch. They're still behind, so they are forced out of the round, basically. And it kind of feels bad to lose on even, but that's sometimes that's just the way it is. So we see a Trollolo. That's pretty powerful if there's more dumb bananas coming, and Pixie's hand is kind of a non-factor if the 6th faction can get the easiest tour of their life here, potentially.
I mean, they've opted to hold on to that Scorch, which I think is interesting. It's right because they have a Trollolo, right? So, you can just kill Trollolo.
Is it though? I mean, it's a 0-point card in that instance, right? You remove the
it's a net negative, but you're stopping your opponent from shawnying a dumb banana. So I think it's useful in this situation. Naneke is coming out, and they're going to have to, I guess, put some things into their deck. But if you put things into your deck, you're reducing the chance of drawing that shiny, which is, a really nice play here. I guess in this situation, you want to put in stuff like Stennis, where if you draw them, you're going to get maybe some more value out of it than just its base value.
You have 2 Reaver Scouts left in the deck and nothing to pull with them. So I think maybe you have to play it safe here and actually put bronzes, like battering rams, basically back in to make sure
battering rams
if you draw those Reavers, they're not going to be 1-point plays, because that's it if that happens.
Well, they've got a field medic in hand as well, so they're likely to see those Reavers. So I think you do have to put a battering ram. But the question is, I don't know. This is a tough one. Like, they've kind of gotten to this stage in the deck where they've got a bunch of Reaver Scouts and nothing to draw, and that is definitely a risk you have when you play Reaver Scouts, especially in a Hensel deck, which already has a decent amount of thinning. It already has Hensel, so it's definitely a risk in choosing to run those. And I think with 6th faction, they're sitting really pretty here. You get that Reaver Scout, and I'd imagine they're just going to toss it and just be like, nope, please, please shiny, please something. But that is
anything else is better. So the battering ram at least means that the field medic can be used to, not even it's just they just can't really do anything with this hand. I mean, you have a Scorch and 2 bronze cards that rely on synergy that have no synergy. So
because what do? You play the battering ram and hit nothing. Then you field medic the battering ram and hope that you don't, Scout, probably. And that you get a battering ram, and they're probably going to get a Reaver Scout. I mean, we're going to see all of the bless RNGs in the chat, because chat loves it. Chat loves a terrible top deck. I love a terrible top deck. I love a great top deck as well, but I can't see this going any way other than, I think, except the Scorch that, because you're not really going to battering ram it, right? It's just remove 3 armor.
I think it's all just a moot point at the moment. Any single card in the 6th faction hand beats the entire hand of Team Pixie.
It's obvious, but maybe you're hoping that 6th faction have drawn 3 Reaver Scouts, right?
Well, yeah, and maybe I'm gonna buy a Ferrari tomorrow, but we see the shiny come down, and we see the forfeit come down, and there you go. 6th faction hitting back with a pretty nice win there.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have a series. It's not just a 3-0 sweep. Thank God for that. The finals was a 3-0. I was going to be quite upset. I mean, I'm wondering if the strike format lends itself more strongly to these kind of sweeps. I definitely think we've seen more sweeps this week in TGI than we have in previous weeks.
You would think that it would work the opposite way, considering the losing team gets to actually choose their matchup, right? But apparently that's not how it works.
I think what we've been seeing how well teams adapt to the strike format, basically. And we do actually have a donation, I believe, to read out. So let's do that really quickly before I talk about the strike format. So we have a donation from Gulox2. We have $19 that says, prize pool is $900 now. Don't spend all the winnings on glitter rocks. What else are you going to buy? Glitter rocks are a human friend's best friend, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's very tempting. Appreciate that donation, Gulox2. That pushes the prize pool up to almost $1,050, I think.
Oh, so much money. Man,
All
all
right.
of the glitter rocks. All of the glitter rocks. So, here we are. Game 4. We have Ethnay Mirror. You know, guys, spoilers, but I think Ethnay might win this one.
I'm not so sure. I think Ethne could pull it back, to be honest.
So, in terms of the mirror, you know, what are teams looking for? What kind of, you know, how do you go into this mirror in terms of your strategy? How does your strategy maybe in this sort of match differ from the way it would in other matches?
Well, it's interesting in that a lot of the removal, i.e. Alza's Thunder, that is in this type of deck, isn't actually very effective because Farseers are 8 strength. So Alza's targets are basically protectors, which you don't generally play until they're higher than 7 strength anyway. So I assume that we're going to just basically see kind of a big old brawl, seeing who can get the most points. And this is going to be interesting to see if the dry pass is still something that... yeah, okay, so Team Pixie going for the dry pass here.
They just both pass. We'll get the tie, and then we'll go from there. Like that would be fantastic to see.
It's possible. I mean, both of them want card advantage. No one. I don't know.
It's got to be.
I'll be honest. I'm not experienced. Right? Sorry.
It's got to be such sick faction. Like maybe we should just pass 2. Like maybe we should just make this an epic for the finals.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one because you like that card advantage. Sick faction are interesting. They've got a Glace in hand, which is really lovely in this matchup because you know you have more or less your pick of your opponent's special cards because you know they've been special. Like you know they play in special. Whereas Pixie opted to go for that Zoltan rather than the Ethnay, but they do have obviously the gold weather. Do you think that is because of the weather, that they want to be able to move those units into the weather and get more value out of that than say something like an Glace?
No, I think it's more for the Hailstorm, honestly, and I think that in this specific matchup, it's going to be ridiculous in combination with Hailstorm, because if your opponent has multiple 20-point Farseers, 20-point Protectors, and you're going to shunt them all to a row and Hailstorm it, that's going to be pretty soul-crushing, honestly. And not having a similar answer might just be the end of the Sixth Faction here.
I mean, Sixth Faction have opted to play. They opted to play one of their protectors this round, so they're going to have, you know, slightly fewer points. Maybe they'll then go for the pass here in order, you know, to gain that card advantage back. Just take turns. You have round 1, you know, we'll have round 2. There it goes. We'll all mulligan our cards. We'll get the bestest hand that we possibly can, and then we'll like have fisticuffs at dawn, basically.
Well, this is going to be a really strange round 3, considering that there's like just gold weather kind of everywhere, and no clears. And the gold weather, like having multiple gold weathers in hand, is actually going to be detrimental because you will be playing one of them for 0 points effectively.
Well, they have a mulligan here, right? So that's okay, and
yeah,
not necessarily because they could first light.
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether they make the call to get rid of a gold weather here. I think that's kind of what you have to do.
I think so. I think you can find them again with various cards if you happen to be running Last Wish, for example, which they are. You can, you know, Nature's Gift into Last Wish, into drawing cards from your deck, which if you've already thinned your deck, you're quite likely to find that weather should you need it. But I gotta say, I love this double Quen play coming out of Team Pixie. You know, they know the Elza's Thunders abound. They know that Sixth Faction are going to be trying to put damage onto their units, and they've basically just Quenned everything that Sixth Faction wants to target. And Quen protects against Marigolds, you know, Quen protects against, I mean, weather is going to be good for them because that'll get a tick and that'll remove the shield, but it's a very useful play in this matchup.
Yeah, so loving this double Quen coming out of the Sixth Faction now. It's one of those mirrors where it's literally a mirror.
Yeah, I told you it was a good play. I know what I'm talking about. I got this down.
Yeah, I never doubted. So interesting that Team Pixie goes for the row stack straight away here. So they either don't care about the Hailstorm because of the Quen, or they are trying to, I guess they're trying to like play around the gold weather, because if they play on multiple rows, then the gold weather will ping off all the Quen shields, and then that leaves you open for removal. So I guess they just row stack here to deny gold weather value in terms of moving Quen.
If they have Ragnarok, it's going to ping off all the Quen shields anyway, but they don't. They have Drought. So 6th faction doesn't have Ragnarok. They have Drought, which is not as useful for removing shields because obviously it hits the smallest unit. So that'll hit the 12, remove the shield, hit the 12 again, and the 12 will then become a 10, and then an 8, and then it's going to kill that small unit before it hits that big one.
Well, actually, it'll just be a 12 forever because it's going to keep getting buffed by 2. So.
Yeah, well, that's assuming that, they pay special cards every single round. And at some point, they're going to have to play that other Farseer and the Double Thunder Protector. So, you're right. It's definitely going to eat up a lot of that weather damage. But point being, you're not going to be able to remove both of those shields with one weather in the way that you could maybe do with something like a Ragnarok.
Yeah, for sure. And, both players... That's the word I was looking for. Sitting on a lot of removal. They're sitting on their artifact compressions. Do you think that there's any argument for using them early to deny point gain here, or are they saving them for perhaps protectors later on?
I think it's completely irrelevant to use them early. They're gonna, they're gonna be useful, right? No, you use them now, useful. You can use them later, useful. You may as well just wait until which of their targets is going to be the biggest, because you're going to be zapping them, you're going to be weathering them, you're going to be dealing damage. So right now, you're not 100% sure exactly which target is the best one to artifact compression. Whereas if you just wait a little bit, then it's
you're guaranteed maximum, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of safer. I wouldn't play them now. I'd be looking at thinning my deck. I'd be looking at, deciding the timing for my weather. 6th faction weather's been played, as you guys just saw, and then cleared. Whereas Team Pixie are kind of holding off on their weather. I guess they're hoping that 6th faction will maybe try and, thin their deck or play some of those clear skies, thinking that Team Pixie doesn't have the weather. Because this is a really interesting strategy you can do with weather, is you can kind of sit on it a little bit. Most people, when you're playing weather in a long round, few rounds, they've got Ethne, for the Resurrect, that is true. But
it's also the fact that the Team Pixie has 2 gold weathers. It's like, how long do you really want to sit on both of those before one of them possibly becomes kind of useless?
Well, I think you're kind of aware that they're going to get cleared, right? So I still think you would sit on them until there's units on more than one row, because that way at least you're getting 6 value out of them. So I think sitting on the weather is safer, and I think sitting on weather also sometimes makes your opponent think that you don't have weather. Admittedly, in this matchup, you have thinning coming out your wazoo, so that the weather is coming. Like, it's not when will there be a drought, or if there will be a drought. It's when there will be a drought, and when there will be Ragnarok. Like, so you kind of know it's going to happen, right? It's guaranteed.
Yeah. So both teams are electing for the just stack a row strategy here to play around the other team's gold weather. I think this game kind of comes down to who can ping off the most Quen shields for Hailstorm, to be honest.
I think that's fair to say. The Hailstorm is definitely going to be one to, it's going to have that swing effect, and pinging off Quens is definitely going to help you in that regard. I mean, 6th faction, they have their Last Wish and they have their Ethne, so if they want to go looking for weather, they can. But I feel like it's not going to be the weather match, right? And I think the Team Pixie, they're thinking, do I want to take that 2 value or do I want to remove a shield? And they opted for 2 value. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that possibly you could have gone for a shield removal there, to be honest, because you're likely Marigolding that back row, in which case you're going to do 1 damage to that Ithlin anyway. So really that Thunder was possibly worth 1. And I don't know, I guess they're confident that they can take off all of the Quen shields without needing to do that.
I guess it doesn't, at this stage, it doesn't really matter because, if you kill that unit, then when you play your Drought, it'll hit a Quen shield, but they've just gone and played an Elven Merc, which stops that from happening. So maybe their thought was, it doesn't really, if we kill this, the Drought will hit those, so that's why we're going to do it. But I agree with you that I think in that instance, the removal of a shield was more valuable than the 2-point kill.
Yeah, we see a pretty early Mardrum coming out here and just saying goodbye to that Protector, which is a lot of potential points shut out of the round for Team Pixie. They do have another Protector, and they are going to drop the Drought here just to start getting value from it. We imagine that this will be cleared.
Yeah, I would expect it to be cleared. Not necessarily this turn. Like, you can afford to have 1 more tick and lose that 1. I don't think you can necessarily afford to have another tick. But, how are you going to find your first lights? You're going to find them with the Elven Merc. You can see them, hovering the Elven Merc. So they're thinking, well, let's try and fish for first light. And then if you happen to have more special cards in your deck and you don't get a favorable offering, that's okay, because you've got the Last Wish, so you can try and find it again later. So they have that option. They also have a Glace. They can always use a Glace to take that first light that was played by Team Pixie, and then that gives them, a really nice option there, because they can also then Ethnay that, because that'll be in their graveyard. We know that Team Pixie aren't running. A Glace, so they can't take it back. Although they've already played their Ethnay, so you don't really have that situation that sometimes happens where you want to Glace and take something out of their graveyard before they resurrect it, that you often do see in these kind of matchups.
Yeah, they're kind of free to pick and choose their moment, I suppose. And so Ragnarok just comes straight down, and it's going to take off those Quen shields, and that's really the biggest thing here. A Glace, well, it's going to take off one Quen shield. A Glace probably comes in with the Clear Skies here, as you were saying. I don't really feel like you're going to wait around for a better Glace target. I mean, you really don't want that other Quen shield to be pinged off, because you're inviting the Hailstorm.
I agree, and I think playing a Glace here is better than playing Ethnay for the first light, because a Glace, you only have an option of what they played, whereas Ethnay, you have what you've played, and you have control of what you've played. You don't have control of what they've played, so playing the Glace for the Clear Skies rather than the Ethnay for the Clear Skies, I think, is the better play.
Yeah, and this artifact compression that's coming in is really powerful. 18 points, more than 18 points. It's going to end up working out to about nearly 30 by the end of the round.
But also they can Ethnay artifact compression, can't they?
Yes.
So then I think, because Team Pixie have already played their Ethnay, this artifact compression and not Hailstorm are potentially what's going to decide this game, because the sixth faction, they don't need to remove those shields. They can just double artifact compression, and it does a lot more than a Hailstorm is ever going to do to those Farseers and to those Protectors. So sixth faction are actually sitting in a really, really nice spot here in terms of their hand and their options, because Team Pixie doesn't have the Glace. They can't stop them. They can't take away that artifact compression. And that's maybe why running a Zoltan rather than a Glace is questionable strategy in this mirror.
Yeah, I think so, because even though they're 28 points up, the double artifact half their points off the board, just like that.
Yep.
And Hailstorm, is likely not really going to be able to compete with that.
I agree. I think we thought, Hailstorm, but looking at how this is kind of panning out, I think this artifact compression is going to be very impactful, and I think that is probably what's going to decide the game. And I think this is they're about 30 points down, but I think this is sixth faction's game. Looking at these hands, I feel like even with the Hailstorm at this stage is what, 14 points, right? You've got a 14-point Hailstorm, whereas you have an artifact compression that's worth, 24? Twice? That's 48 points in 2 cards, plus 5 from the Ethnay. That's 53 points. And, artifact compression, people they're like, what's the point in running artifact compression? But this is a situation where artifact compression
apparently
comes out to play, and having that option on their Ethnay is going to be so big. I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah, the other thing is that Team Pixie's hand, all of the cards at the moment are cannibalizing each other's value. The Lacerate is reducing the Marigold's value. The Mardrom is reducing the Marigold's value. There's not actually really much synergy going on. It's like they have too much removal for their own good here.
Yeah, that's true. I think, with the Zoltan, it's useful in that you can use it to line up your Hailstorm and you can use it to remove Quen. But in this situation, an artifact compression is worth a lot more than a Hailstorm. That's the issue. It's it's the half versus the whole, right? And Hailstorm is great when there's loads of big targets, but with these decks, with the Farseers and with the Protectors, you're never going to have that many targets. This isn't one of these matches where you swarm the board. This is one of the matches where you have, few strong targets, and that's where artifact compression comes out to play.
Yeah, and it's just really awkward for Team Pixie here. Like, if they Mardrem, all they're doing is taking value away from Zoltan and Marigolds, but I mean, they don't know that there's no more units going to be coming down. Or maybe they do. I don't know. Have the Sixth Faction played out all of their guys at the moment? Or do they still have some left?
They've played 3 Farseers and 2 Dol Blathana Protectors.
Yeah, so there's one left that can be pulled with the not Last Wish, Nature's Gift, or an Alz's or something from Ethne. We do see the Mardrem on the Farseer here, and this means that Team Pixie are basically going to try to find value on another Protector that's going to be coming out. If the Sixth Faction do decide to play the 3rd Protector here, then they're kind of feeding points to Team Pixie. I'm wondering why they're holding onto the artifact compression so heavily. The targets for it are fairly obvious at this point, and I guess they're maybe scared of the Iglace. They might not be aware that it's not run. I guess they're just looking for...
Like, that has to be it, right? So, but then the question is, do you put another unit on the board which gives Team Pixie more targets, or do you play the compression? And they're opting to play the compression here, which I agree is like the right call. The risk was in the Iglace and giving them that option, but it turns out that that's not a risk that actually exists. Yeah,
and that's a gigantic swing. It takes them to within 7 points just like that. And then replaying that on the other Farseer is going to be enough, I think. The Hailstorm's going to be worth a fair amount, but we do have another Protector to see from the Sixth Faction. That will be 15 plus points. I think they're just going straight for the Ethne artifact compression here.
You would, just in case it's a glaze. Although I think at this stage it's not, because you've seen all of their gold cards,
actually,
right?
you've seen all the gold,
Zoltan, Yeah, I think the Marigolds is going to be about 23, but this artifact compression is going to be 26 plus 5 from the Ethne, so 31, and then if you pull that last buffed up Protector, I think that is quite clearly enough points for Sixth Faction. You see them 53 to 34 here, so even with a 23 point, I think it's about 23 or maybe 24 point at this stage now, 25, yeah. You've got 7 points down, but I'm pretty sure this Nature's Gift, they've got something in there. They've got that last Protector, and they should have something to find it. Yeah, well, even if they just have any spell, it's gonna buff up their dudes. Man, look at that Marigold's value on those on those artifacts. They sure got shown there, that 1 hull damage. You guys, 5 games. This is getting pretty hype. Korea's you might have Hensel, but we have artifact compression. Look at our little figurines. 2 and 2, and this is kind of what you want to see in the grand final. It's kind of all coming down to ride on this one game now. Yep, this is the decider, and I'm really glad that we got 5 games here. I think we've seen some really good plays. I think Sixth Faction, they definitely had some bad luck early on with their draws in the first 2 series, but these last 2 games especially, I think, have been really kind of closely fought. And I think it could go either way here. Team Pixie, playing really well, showing really innovative decks, but Sixth Faction, don't judge them because they're pretty decent too. So who do you think's got it? Come on, place your bets in this Dagon versus Henselt matchup. Could go either way. I'm gonna go with Sixth Faction, honestly. See, I think Henselt will take it. I think Sixth Faction, I don't know. It's so draw dependent for them, and Dagon is a deck that definitely can and does mess up, right? But this is the moment, though. This is the time. Surely they can break through the wall of bad luck. But we've seen this Henselt deck perform so well in the last few games. In every game that we've seen Team Pixie play, this Henselt has, it's pretty much turned up. Even in that game where they got no value out of Henselt and no value out of a Reaver Hunter, they still managed to win it. Although, how do you feel about Six Factions Hand?
Well, it's not
golden,
terrible,
right?
and that's generally what you look for when you're playing this deck.
But they've got no golds. I mean, they've not got, it's not Harpies and Neckers, but there's no gold cards either.
Yeah, I don't know. Golds are overrated. It's fine. I mean, the thing is that they have the Selenos and they have a lot of consume, which means that they're going to be able to set up pretty big Neckers. The Vran isn't going to be able to be controlled by anything that Team Pixie can throw down. Eskel can't kill it because it's boosted, of course. It'll take too long to kill it with battering rams. It'll out-consume the amount of damage that it's taking. So, and there's no locks or anything. There's a Mardrom. Is there a Mardrom anywhere for Team Pixie?
Nope.
That would be the only real answer to the Necker, potentially.
But the thing is, similarly, there's no answers in Six Factions Hand, right? Like, Team Pixie can do what they like here. They don't have that K round that you'd love to see to eat the Kidweni. They just kind of have to accept the fact that there's gonna be, 3 Kidwenis in this match. Like, how are they gonna stop that? They're not, and you can see them opting to play the Frightener and draw, which means I'm taking this as we don't want to play this round, right? This is
so risky.
Especially with the Harpies.
Out.
Yep, Harpies, Neckers, and Foglets. Oh my.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dorothy.
That was a terrifying play to make, to be honest. I don't know. That was really risky. I'm not really sure I agree with that. I don't know why they wouldn't just set the Vran up here, to be honest. Like, I guess they're thinking that they're just going to get out of the round, and so they don't have to play around into a bunch of Kidwenis. But why not get the Kidwenis out first, I suppose?
Yeah, I can understand that. Let them play the Kidwenis. As it is, Team Pixie actually has the third Kidweni in hand, so they're not going to be committing their Henselt yet. And I feel like this did give Six Factions kind of strategy away. This says, this is a very, very clear signal. Six Faction is saying, we don't want to play this round. Like, that is all it says to me. They're like, here's our Frightener, Henselt out all your Kidweni, and then we'll maybe go from here. I would say it's a fairly clear signal, but then now that it's happened, they maybe have to play into it.
I think they were more just concerned with reversing the coin flip, to be honest. And then now they've done that, they're going to start setting up their point engines.
But if you're concerned about reversing the coin flip, then surely you wait until later and then reverse the coin flip at that stage when you're not likely to pull Neckers, you're not likely to pull Harpies, and you're not likely to pull a Foglet. Unless this is like some next level bamboozle where they're like, we'll make them think that we have a terrible hand by playing this. Hopefully not draw something that gives us a terrible hand and then, take it from there.
Yeah, I don't know. The Frightener play was confusing. It frightened me, to be honest. But we'll... I don't know, we'll see what the overall strategy turns into here, I suppose. At the moment, with 2 siege supports down, they're not committing the third one. Instead, they're just going to get the points where they can take them. And the 16 points bronze, not bad. Puts them up by 26. I mean, the Six Faction are up a card, so they can afford to play 2. But that's a big margin.
I think they're concerned, right? Their concern is that, as Team Pixie, their concern is how long does Six Faction want to play into this round when we have these Kidwenis on board. So if you play the third Kidweni, that's more or less saying, we want a long round, at which Six Faction will probably be like, nope, screw this, you're getting 3 extra points on every single card that you play, not worth. Whereas this way, they're not committing too hard, but they're still getting a lot of points. The thing is that, take it away.
The thing is that there's no Shani, right? So keeping this Kidweni is actually possibly pretty heads up, because you can reinforce out the Neneke, put the other 2 back in the deck, play this one from hand, and then Henselt it. So you're avoiding the risk of not drawing Shani and still having that combo available by not playing this one. So it's kind of an investment for later rounds, perhaps.
That makes sense. I agree with that. You can see Six Faction finally starting to thin. They got that Foglet out. They got a Harpy out. So, hopefully things will be a little bit safer from here on out. But, I mean, you're 23 points down. You've got 1 card up. So, you don't have to make 23 points in 1 card. But they've got 2 Kidwenis. Like, how how much do you want to play into this round? I mean, as monsters, you have carryover, so in some ways you can afford to play into rounds because you have those 2 Ekamaras and the NECA. But on the flip side, you know, it's Northern Realms. They've got Dijkstra, you know, they've got Shani, they've got Neneke, you've seen them be played. They've got Natalis, usually into reinforcements, into something like Stennis, for example. Like, they've got a lot of options where even if you have carryover, it doesn't always matter. Yeah,
well, the thing is, though, Team Pixie's hand is kind of possibly too good for its own good at the moment. They don't have, medics, so they're not going to be able to cycle and thin their deck as much as they perhaps want to. And I don't know, do you want to spend, all of these kind of power cards to take this round? Without having, a Shani, Neneke. I mean, you can reinforce the Neneke, but you have no guaranteed Shani. You're probably going to draw a lot of bronzes later on. So, I mean, it looks like their strat is kind of just power out this round with gigantic tempo, and then try and save DJ, I guess, like a 20, the Neneke combo for later round. But the 6th faction, because of the Frightener, are just going to be able to kind of keep on going here. And it kind of feels like Team Pixie is being bled a little. Okay, well, jokes. 6th faction are out of there. That's a crazy good result for Pixie.
Yeah, I think knowing their hand is good. Because they couldn't really play Dijkstra, because that might pull Neneke. They couldn't play reinforcements to draw Neneke, because they need to wait till the Katwini are in their graveyard. And like you said, they didn't have a lot of other options. I guess Natalis Commander's Horn would probably be, if I were them, where you would go next if that round continued. But as it didn't, you know, it's kind of almost been a blessing for them. Although the reinforcements Commander's Horn into Natalis, into hovering on the coin. I wonder why they made that play.
Yeah. That's gonna make things kind of awkward. I guess they have to mulligan one of those away, or I guess they can play Horn, Neneke back, get a double Horn or something, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, you know, having seen 6th faction play this Dagon deck before, you know that they're running, Nekas and Ekamaras, so you don't want them to set up carryover. You may as well round 2. You're just gonna pass. You know they'll probably play a Neka here if they have one. There's some sort of carryover. So if they play the Ekamara, you know, that's I guess holding a Neka for later rounds, and then you can eat them with the Bran. But you know they're going to be setting up carryover here, so of course you pass. Yeah.
But why? So the 6th faction want to play an Ekamara here. Why would you play that over the Neka? Because you surely want to thin the Neka out so that you can mulligan more safely, right? This seems strange, and it also reduces the amount of options you have to cycle Nekas next. I guess you only need to cycle 1.
Well, if you hold the Nekas, then you can chain eat them. You can chain eat them round 3, so you get the value of 3 Nekas rather than the value of 2 Nekas. Or you draw that 3rd Neka. That, I guess, is...
that's what I was worried about. So it's and now they have
into a harpy.
So
oh no!
I feel like they could have avoided that situation, because if they had have just played out a Neka, then one gets thin, you can't draw it, and then you can mulligan a bit more safely. And now, I don't know, how do you fix this? So
I mean, I feel like they just thought they needed those points for round 3, which I think going into a Hensel like this, you kind of do, because you know that they can set up those Katwenis again, and you don't have anything that you can really do about it. And I kind of feel bad for 6th faction here in that they got some, you know, there's some really nasty draws going on here, and they really didn't see their gold cards. You know, we've got the Giels in hand, so you can find a second one, but I mean, Dijkstra, Natalis, and Eskel all quite comfortably in Team Pixie's hand since the start of the round. I definitely think 6th faction were going to try and find. They were trying to get that Neka value onto this final round, because they need it to keep up in tempo with Team Pixie. And I guess once we get to the end of the round, we'll see just how that point differential shapes up.
Yeah, I mean, Team Pixie have a pretty scary hand here. I'm assuming that this reinforcement is going to be in a Neneke. The Neneke is going to put siege supports back in, and then the siege support Hensel combo is open up. The reinforcement has to go back in, of course, so that John isn't dead, and then presumably, battering rams. So so a siege support comes down, and then we see John into reinforcement into battering ram into Hensel battering ram.
Yep. Makes sense. I don't know what 6th faction can really do here. I'm trying to like think ahead with all the plays. But the thing is,
I mean,
Team Pixie are kind of just being allowed, like with this kind of situation, that they're more or less allowed to. They're allowed to just play their strategy, right? There's no interaction, and letting Hensel just play his strategy is painful.
Well, yeah, but I mean, by the same token, so is the Sixth faction. They're in the same position. Like the Hensel's, this isn't a particularly controlling Hensel deck. They're kind of allowed to do what they want as well, except it's what? Oh no! So an Olgierd round 3. That's not really what you want to see in this situation. I feel like this is just kind of getting worse and worse every time a card enters the Sixth faction's hand.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, but this is the thing, is you're saying that, with monsters, they want to play out their strategy, and Hensel's not going to stop them doing that. But with monsters, you're much, much more unlikely to have a bad hand, right? Like, just in terms of comparing the decks. And I feel like this is a lot of the reasons why, because they were both allowed to do their own thing, this is maybe why this was game 5. This was the matchup that nobody wanted to play, basically, until the final round. This matchup is getting played because we had 5 games. And I think with monsters, they definitely can beat Northern Realms when they get, the cards that they need. But Sixth Faction they're just not seeing it. They've seen 1 gold, which allowed them to draw Kairan, which is, nice, but ultimately it's I don't think it's going to be nice enough.
No, I don't think so. I think also this Ran is just sitting in hand, which could have been points on these Neckers. I think that you probably needed to put the Ran down early to try and get as much out of it as you can. I guess maybe because there's only 1, and therefore you only have 1 opportunity to cycle Neckers, maybe you're kind of wary to do that, but like with a hand like this, you kind of need to be eking out every point you can get. Yeah,
but I don't think you can do that with a Rant Warrior knowing they're running Scorch. Like, that Scorch is there, so you can't make a great big fat Ran, so then you can't get all this crazy value out of your Neckers. You have to kind of be patient. I mean, we can see that they don't have the Scorch in hand, but, Dijkstra's in hand, so that's effectively the Scorch, and they know that that's something that they can pull, so of course they're going to be kind of patient with it. And that's why Sixth Faction, they're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because you play the Ran Warrior, you try and, get those consume points, you try and rack them up, you try and let it eat for a lot of rounds, and then Team Pixie scorches you. Or you don't do it, you don't get those points, you don't get tempo, and you lose. Like you either have to go for tempo and hope that they don't get the Scorch, or wait and then not get points.
I think that based on the hand that they came into the round with, they probably needed to just... I mean, this whole game for them so far has been taking chances onto chances on top of chances, right? And I think that at this point, you kind of just have to keep taking those chances and just hope that there's no Scorch, perhaps.
I think that's fair. I think especially if you want to win in this situation, you're going to kind of have to do that. I mean, they were fortunate in the... I don't know if they're running Renew, but the Giel's Renew, that would have been like the cherry on the bad draws cake that is this matchup. Although their Frightener didn't pull a bad card, so their very first early play Frightener was okay, and they didn't pull Renew. So, I mean, maybe this is fine top decking. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. The Hensel is now activated because of the reinforcement to this battering ram. So presumably next round we see a Hensel come down, and then the field medics are going to start cycling those. We'll see Reaver Scouts and 4 Infantry coming out, and then there's definitely going to be enough population for Commander's Horn max value. There's still the DJ. It looks pretty grim for the Sixth Faction.
Yeah, obviously you want to hold that Commander's Horn until after you play the DJ, just in case of the Scorch, because if you end up with a bigger unit than, I believe, a 10 that's sitting on the back row of Sixth Faction, that you've kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit. I guess that's maybe how Sixth Faction wins, if Team Pixie misplays and burns their own unit. But even then, like, with the amount of points they're going to be getting with this Hensel and with this cycling and with this Commander's Horn, it might not even matter.
I think it does. Like, even, I mean, so sure, Sixth Faction are up 20 points, but the Hensel play covers that instantly, and looks like we're going to see that straight away. Yeah,
the Hensel play more than makes up for that. You've got the 7 8, 9, 10 plus the pencil, so that's a 4, but it's a 2, so 4. So 7 and 4, 11, 8, 9, 10 plus 7, 17. It's a lot of points. Just it's a lot of points.
Was done. They're now ahead. It's Witcher 2 Assassin of Kings, apparently.
Yeah, guys, you should play Witcher 2, by the way, in case you didn't know that was something that exists.
Okay.
It's just some shameless CDPR self-promotion.
So we see a buyer here. It's fine. It's almost max value. It keeps them ahead. I mean, they're down a card and only slightly ahead. It's never really enough. And the field medic's just going to come out and straight heal that battering ram and reactivate its deploy, basically.
How does a medic even heal a battering ram? It's like, oh, that battering ram looks a bit sore after hitting that door. Like, what even is that logic?
The medic sends it back to the deck, right? So it goes back to the deck, which is like, it goes back to the repair workshop or whatever. Gets repaired, and then the medic pulls it back out.
Okay, so there's a repair workshop in the deck. Good to know.
Yeah, now this one's going back there as well, see? Yeah, easy.
Okay, I guess. Yes. I'll allow it.
gotta keep all the equipment in tip-top shape, you know?
You can see with positioning that Team Pixie are wary of miracles.
Yeah, they're electing to sort of gimp their horn value a bit just to make sure that they don't get slugged for too many points. Realistically, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Sixth Faction just can't even get ahead, and they're behind on cards, and there's these two
Scorch, please, Scorch. I've got all my fingers crossed and my toes. I'm so ready for it. Like, there's 2 10s. They just need to be burned. It's like, as soon as you see something like that, you know, it just needs to happen. And this is why I was saying they need to play the DJ before they play the Commander's Horn in case of that Scorch Pull. Come on.
Yeah, and they're very aware of that.
Oh,
and
I'm so upset.
Instead, they're just gonna pull out the Horde here. It gives them the Sixth Faction a decent Marigolds, but it instantly gets countered point for point by the Commander's Horn. So
yeah, I mean that's not what you wanted to draw there at all. That kind of fed right into their Marigolds. In terms of the DJ extras, you know, that wasn't the most extra of DJs, but Commander's Horn there, it doesn't matter. They were only turned out to be 29 points. Oh my god, all of those 10s. That hurts me. Yeah. The 9s, whatever. Rounding. They weren't like that far behind, but I'm so upset about those 10s. And Witcher 2 is apparently really important, you guys.
So there we go. That is it. Done, dusted. Team Pixie, the reigning champions.
Yep, so Team Pixie take the finals in a epically fought 3-2. I feel bad for Sixth Faction. I think they really showed up for Korean Gwent, and I feel like they really kind of gave it their bad. There were some really, you know, upsetting draws that we saw in some of the games that they lost, but that's not to say that, you know, Team Pixie only won because Sixth Faction maybe had some bad draws. Like Team Pixie, the double infantry at the end there wasn't what they wanted to see. You know, sometimes it just doesn't happen with stuff like with DJ or with these decks that are very kind of mulligan dependent. And all in all, I thought it was a great set to watch. I had a really great time, you know, casting with you. I thought this was, you know, pretty fun, and I think, you know, well done to both teams. I think both teams kind of really had a good go at it. And congratulations to Team Pixie, who are our like TGI winners. But that's not it, you guys. That is not it, because turns out dun and like Commander's Horn 2. That was my, like, you know, drum roll noise. Turns out that there is in fact the ultimate finish, as the victors of TGI have actually earned the right to compete in a one-of-a-kind show match against Team Rethas, which unsurprisingly is led by Rethas himself, which has been dubbed the ultimate TGI final boss, coming soon to the Gwentlemen channel. Stay tuned for a date soon, TM, at some point.
Yeah, and the action doesn't end there, however. There's also the upcoming Gwentlemen's Open, which is taking place on September 30th through to October 1st. So that's just over a week away, and sign-ups are open. I'm not sure if we can get a link in the chat, perhaps. And that is
we got like
multiple links, yeah. And that's a $250 prize pool. So, not too bad, not too shabby. It's open to anyone, I believe. So if you feel like, you want to put your best foot forward, then get in there.
Yeah, I think so. And I think overall TGI has been a really fun event for me as a viewer. How did you find you played? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I've played, I've hosted, I've casted, kind of had the full trifecta, I guess. It was a great experience, and I guess we can kind of combine this with the shout outs. Shout outs to Gwentlemen for putting on the tournament. Obviously, a lot of work went into organizing the whole thing, and a lot of work went in terms of mediators and admins every week. Multiple people showing up to make it all happen. And it's been a great experience as a player, caster, and host.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, I'm sure the people at home would love to know about Naneke and our good friend Ailerin, but maybe that's a story that you want to tell them another time, potentially. But yeah, so honestly, shout outs to Gwentlemen. It's obviously been lovely for them to have us here on the host. This obviously was a impromptu cast by both me and Agadan. We did not know that we were casting today. Obviously some technical difficulties, which we apologize for, but definitely keep an eye out for future Gwentlemen invitationals. I think this has been a great opportunity for players to shine. I think we've really seen that in the 6th faction and Korean Gwent. I would love to see a tournament that is maybe regionally based, where like a Gwent World Cup or something. That's something I think I would get behind. And I think the viewers at home would too. So obviously thanks to them. Shout outs to chat for being here and critiquing everything. It's great to have people tuning in and week out and following these games. If there's feedback you'd like to give us or whatnot, you can always try and contact someone at Gwentlemen, either in the chat or through something like Twitter. Shout outs to Lurtz behind the scenes. He did have his power cut, but everything worked out. Who else? CDPR, obviously, for making this fantastic game, and Rethaz for providing us with our TGI final boss. Keep an eye out for that. Gwentlemen, like we said, TGO, Gwentlemen Open. If you want to participate in tournaments, that is something to sign up for. And shout outs to all of our donators. And there is still a little tiny bit of time to donate. If you want to support the prize pool, if you've enjoyed the tournament, you can always donate. 100% of the money goes to the prize pool for the players. I think that's about it, isn't it?
I guess so. I guess that about covers anything. I hope that everyone has enjoyed the tournament, players, viewers alike. And I guess we will see you next time. Stay tuned for more action.
Bye.
Bye.